Hey guys, I love the Call of Duty campaigns. I mean, for as much hate as they get, I think they're awesome. They're complete over-the-top set pieces, they're dumb plots, and they're one-dimensional characters. At the end of the day, they're just plain dumb fun. And that's why I've decided for my first series of videos on this channel to rank every single Call of Duty single-player mission. And if it sounds completely pointless, well, it's because it probably is. But hopefully it will be a lot of fun. Now, before we start, it's not going to be every single mission from every Call of Duty. I've only decided to include the main PC releases after COD 4, which means that none of these games will be present in the list. Also, the ranking will be completely subjective and based on my own personal experience with each chapter. And if anyone has a different opinion, I'd love to read it in the comments below. And as a disclaimer, I started working on this video in January and only finished it now. And at that time, I knew nothing about video editing or audio mixing, so you might see throughout the video an improvement in audio quality as it goes along. Not that it is perfect, but let's just say it will be easier to swallow. And also I recommend turning on subtitles, cause sometimes even I can't understand what I'm saying. Now, without further ado, let's get started. Okay. So the worst mission to ever come out in a Call of Duty game, in my opinion, is Hometown.
It isn't fair. They just kill everything.
Now, there is a right way to depict war, and there's a wrong one. And then there's Hometown. This might not be the worst technical level in the series, but it deserves to be at the bottom, just for being of such poor taste. I believe that Hometown exemplifies everything that people hate about Call of Duty. The whole new Modern Warfare campaign is full of this false moralism, but nowhere is it more present than right here. They try to sell this idea that the war is horrible, while at the same time encouraging a sadistic behavior through its gameplay. I just think using kids and the real horrors of the Syrian war to depict this image that the US is objectively good while Russia is cartoonishly bad is the lowest the series has ever gone. This mission deserves to be forgotten. Now, it could be said that Aftermath should not be considered a whole mission on its own, but the game classifies it as one. And as a standalone mission, Aftermath is just very lackluster. I mean, in reality it's a mission that exists only for shock value and not for any progression on the story. The whole thing could have been removed from the game and nothing would have changed. I do think it was a clever use of the gaming format as a means of storytelling, putting you in the shoes of someone in the middle of a nuclear disaster, but gameplay wise, you just crawl and die.
Isn't it?
Oh boy, this is a trippy one. Revelations is another clever use of the media to tell a story in an impressive way. This type of dreamlike sequence was really unseen in the saga before, and the way they used the scenery to show Mason's descent into madness is very impressive to look at. There's nothing really wrong with it, it's just a mission focused on character development and with very little gameplay. However, in a sea of other action-packed missions, this one gets washed away from my memory very easily. I always forget that this mission even exists, and I had to make an honest effort not to forget to put it on the list. And for that, it deserves to be at the bottom. Okay, I know that this and the next one on the list should be at the bottom, considering that in them you literally cannot move, and all you do is look at things as they happen around you. I still believe both of these chapters managed to be a lot more memorable than previous ones. With the coup in particular, it was an awesome way to introduce the villains of the game. The set piece really shows how much of a threat Khaled al-Assad is, with civilians being executed and tanks rolling down the street, until you are dragged to a pole and executed on live television. I mean, I have yet to see a better introduction to a villain in a game. This one is just awesome as well. Again, the only thing you do is look around, but the way they executed this introduction to the Pentagon is amazing. It's a mission full of atmosphere, where the game really shows how important you are in that situation. Being escorted by the police, being greeted by multiple historical figures. I mean, you meet President Kennedy for God's sake. And it's also nice how they set up the reveal later on that Mason might have been the one responsible for Kennedy's assassination. Even though this mission is at the bottom of the list for basically being a glorified cutscene, I still wish they would experiment more with this kind of storytelling. I believe it's a really effective way to immerse you in the story, especially with the proper writing.
Okay, people, the fleet still needs our help. Anyone want to back out? Didn't think so. Going into hot zone. I want everyone sharp and ready for anything. Bastards wiped out most of our ships.
Holy shit! You think anyone's gonna be alive down there?
This one, I think, is truly the most forgettable mission in the entire series. The moment you finish the World at War campaign, you will already have forgotten that this mission even exists. It is overshadowed by the Russian campaign, and it doesn't really connect very well with the American one, with none of the main characters being present. And if you only play the game once on the co-op mode, you might miss it entirely. But how is the level? Well, it's not bad. The entire level is a long turret section, with your character switching between guns and an airplane. But if you can look past that, it can be really fun, and a little intense even. The later half even sees you rescuing sailors from drowning after a kamikaze attack on an American fleet.
Bravo 6, Sniper Team 2 is now in position. We'll give you sniper cover and recon from where we are, over.
I don't like this one, I really don't. It's only higher on the list because it's the first that we have seen so far where you can actually move freely. That's it. All in truly feels like a chore before you can get to the ending of the game, and seeing as it is more of a transition mission, there's not much to be expected from it. Whenever I decide to replay COD 4, this is the part I most dread having to revisit. It feels like a waste of time, and I'm glad it has a short runtime. There's nothing interesting to say. You fight the same enemies as you have been throughout the game, and your only objective is to take out enemy armor and enter the nuclear facility.
Got it. Doors coming online now.
Oh, you gotta be shitting me. Guys, can't you make it open faster?
Negative, sir. But you can try pulling it if it makes you feel better.
Cheeky bastard.
In my opinion, this one also feels like a chore to go through. The level is a series of corridors and hallways which you have seen a million times in other games, including the COD franchise. And I hate this kind of level design. That's why I cannot enjoy a game like Fear, a highly praised game that to me just feels boring as hell, with shootout after shootout on different types of great buildings. And that's the main problem with no fighting in the war room. There are simply other levels in the franchise with much more interesting locations. I'm announcing these two together because they're basically the same, piece by piece. They're both training missions that start with an introduction of the game-based mechanics by a main character in a shooting range, and end with a time trial in a shooting gallery. And they're both very memorable. Both do a good job of introducing the main characters, with FNG introducing Price and Gas, and SSDD introducing Foley, Dawn, and Shepard. What is interesting about them is how they both spawned a community of people trying to speedrun both of the time trials and managing to perform incredibly with absurd world records.
Position 2, go! Hit the targets! Flashbangs through the door! Position 4, hit the targets! Hit the targets! What the bloody hell is that? Incoming missile!
Mayday, mayday. This is Hammer 6-4. We are going down. I repeat, we are going down 2 miles south of Waypoint 5.
Remember how I said that All In is the level I dread the most when replaying COD 4? Well, most of the time I don't have to worry about that, because I always quit right here. Hunted isn't awful, but for some reason it's always the one where I decide to take a break. I think it's simply unremarkable. There are no high stakes, your objective is only to get from point A to point B. The chopper you fight is not even an attack helicopter, it's just a normal troop transport. And I always thought the enemy encounters in this level to be poorly scripted. At first they detect you out of nowhere, then they disappear for no reason just to reappear a second later. And later when you're sneaking through the haystacks, no matter what you do, they always detect you. Maybe I'm nitpicking, and should instead look at it as a whole, but even then I think Hunted is just okay.
Over. Copy. Coming down.
Alright, we'll clear to engage.
5-0, do you want the 30mm or missiles?
Everything you got.
Roger.
1-0, 30. Alright, boys, let's go pick a fight.
Holy shit, that's a lot of targets.
Lots of machine gun fire down there.
We got enemy fire.
Despite what people might say, I enjoyed the Ghost campaign. The story is okay and some of the levels are really fun. Except for a few, this one in particular. Birds of Prey just feels uninspired. Between the helicopter section and the normal boots on the ground section, there isn't a lot to it. The chopper part feels a little out of place, and the first time I played it, I was confused. The game doesn't really explain much on where you're supposed to go, who you're supposed to kill, or where you're supposed to land. And the level also fails to give a sense of threat or emergency, and so the entire thing feels uneventful, especially with your Apache feeling slow and overpowered at the same time. And for the boots on the ground part, it's completely generic. It's another shootout in a factory where nothing major happens apart from capturing Rourke right before the screen fades to black. I have to give Treyarch props for trying something new with the tanks in World War. I think it makes multiplayer mode really fun and unpredictable and adds a new dynamic to it. But as for the campaign, well, it's not really my thing. I think it would have been more interesting if they had made a level with a mixture between third-person tank controls and first-person soldier controls, where you could get in and out of your tank as you pleased, just like in the Battlefield games, or, well, just like in the multiplayer. But the way they executed in Blood and Iron is just tedious. It fits the theme of the game, but in my opinion it's not very fun.
Now get down there and eliminate Rudnick before he escapes.
Operation Red Circus, it's not a bad one, it just feels incomplete, rushed, and more like one of those strike zone missions from Black Ops 2, where they take a multiplayer map and add an objective to it. Even still, you can have fun with it, and considering that it is meant to be an optional level, it is understandable that it is shorter.
Our planes bombed the shit out of the place.
They'll be back, soon as they're refueled and rearmed. For now, it's just us.
The finale to the American campaign. I get the war is hell and it rarely has a heroic ending, at least if you want to maintain a degree of realism, but even still, the ending of the Japanese campaign always felt disappointing to me, especially when you compare it to the finale of the Russian campaign, and it's not like the American one doesn't have its share of memorable moments. Now, the Japanese castle setting is nice, and the part where you can throw mortars at will is ridiculous too, but the flow of the mission doesn't feel right on me. And the death at the end just feels thrown in because they had to have a main character die.
Every day was spent crawling through the mud and the dirt while bullets whistle all around. This is the enemy's last stand. When we take Shuri Castle, we go home. All of us.
Al-Assad is in the village. The ultra-nationalists are protecting him. Perfect. Move out.
Safe House is okay, but like the last one, the flow doesn't feel right on me. And I know that can mean anything, but in this case, I'm referring to the way the game lets you tackle each objective in the order you want. In my opinion, it doesn't make for an engaging gameplay. Not because freedom is necessarily a bad thing, but because it can break the immersion. You go from an SAS team that only engages in firefights when absolutely necessary to just saying fuck it and going uphill guns blazing with zero tactic. And this one also suffers from infinitely spawning enemies, which is always annoying.
Who was that, sir?
Zakhaev. Imran Zakhaev.
A maze of trenches and artillery positions run right through this whole godforsaken rock. The enemy's dug in deep, and we have to get our hands dirty. Flamethrowers. We'll burn them out.
What is there to talk about burn them out? You burn Japanese soldiers with a flamethrower. It's short, really short, but it's memorable, I'll give it that. The setting is very interesting, and it's a good depiction of the carnage of World War II.
Listen only to the sound of my voice. Let your mind relax. Let your thoughts drift. Let the bad memories fade. Let peace be upon you. You are in control. Imagine yourself in a frozen forest.
Remember when I called Revelations trippy? Well, this one beats it. I think I can spend a whole video talking just about life. At first, the Zurich section. Black Ops 3 has a very arcade feeling in its campaign compared to others, which is not necessarily a bad thing. Given the fact that it had a co-op mode, it designed its levels to fit more than one player and more than one playstyle. Maps are often wider with multiple avenues of approach. Beyond that, there are more enemy variants such as drones and sophisticated tanks. And the game also always gives you a chance to choose loadouts mid-game, which are all things I'm fine with. I honestly prefer a more linear approach, but this is cool too. The only thing that grinds my gears are these god-awful turret robots. They just completely break the flow of the battle, with having to constantly switch between an assault rifle and a missile launcher. And the Zurich part has 2 of them in a row. But okay, Zurich is only the beginning of the level. How's the rest? Well, after that there is a short section in the Coalescence building where everyone dies and you commit suicide. Cool, I mean, it's interesting. After that we get to my main problem of the level, the dream sequence. At first the scenery is beautiful, the frozen forest is truly gorgeous to look at, and the introduction of Corvus along with all the story moments are really intense and engaging. The problem is the gameplay. For some reason you have to burn down a tree, and to do that you have to burn 3 hearts. And to burn each heart you have to go through a shooting gallery that mimics previous levels in the game, and reuses previous enemies. This feels completely pointless. Why do we have to burn this tree? Why 3 hearts? Why not just 1? Or why not just fight Corvus? I feel like there's a lot of wasted potential with this level. There's a lot of stuff they could have done with this dream sequence. Instead, it's just long and boring. And finally, the story. What the fuck is going on? The entire game is convoluted and confusing, and this finale doesn't explain much. I could try and explain everything I think is wrong with the story, but that would be pointless, because nobody cares or even remembers the plot of the game.
Imagine yourself
What's your name, soldier?
in a frozen forest.
I said, what's your name?
Taylor.
That From Above, a classic. This one generated a lot of talk in 2007 for mimicking a real AC-130 operation, which is all well and good. The problem is that the level is more interesting to talk about than it is to play it. I mean, the first time is nice, but replaying it just feels like a chore. The novelty wears out pretty fast, and you're just left sitting there staring at a black and white screen for the whole time.
Do not engage any vehicles on the highway unless cleared to do so. But that guy's pissed. That's a nice truck. Nah, he's scared shitless.
Our so-called leaders prostituted us to the West, destroyed our culture, our economies, our honor. Our blood has been spilled on our soil. My blood on their hands.
Automatum's fine. The setting's pretty to look at, there are nice interactions between the characters, the combat is okay, and it's nice to destroy the cable tower. It's one part of a bigger chapter in the game, so it's okay for what it is.
Sorry I didn't wake you. Thought you could use a sleep. My boy. Listen.
Brave New World has an interesting setting. Seeing a destroyed version of LA and a military base in Santa Monica is always cool, but the only interesting part of gameplay is fighting the LA Zurich canal. Also, Riley the dog is introduced here, but you can't use him, and he doesn't serve any purpose in terms of combat.
Command, this is Lieutenant Vasquez. War Pig is en route. We're not missing this party.
I'm not talking a lot about these last missions because there isn't much to talk about them. They're just shooting galleries. I'm only putting War Pig over Brave New World because this one has a tank that stuns you when it fires, which is cool, I guess.
Okay, let's clear the way for the Egyptian infantry assault.
What about Taylor?
One thing at a time, Hendricks. One thing at a time.
We got multiple bogeys.
Break formation and take them out.
I've played Sandcastle a few times already and I still don't get it. Just like the whole of the Black Ops 3 campaign, it's convoluted and confusing. You're fighting the KPA or maybe the NRA or NVA, I don't know. A military force in Egypt. You're trying to regain control of an aquifer they took while at the same time trying to catch your ex-teammates that went rogue. This whole mission reminds me of Star Wars. Maybe, I don't know, the aquifer reminds me of the Jawa truck and your jet reminds me of an X-Wing. Also, there are a lot of robots. And they describe the whole thing as if it's bigger than it really is. There's a part where a character is sitting inside of his fully operational jet while watching through a video feed Taylor, the bad guy, prepping for escape. And everyone acts as if it's too late to catch him. I mean, you're sitting in a jet, dude. It takes less than 5 seconds to get at his position, which you actually do. But the gameplay is okay. The air sections vary between hover and flight mode, with flight just being in on-rail sections. And the on-foot part is fine. It has enough variety to keep you engaged.
I don't know who you are, but let me tell you something. When your old friends desert you, you have to make new ones.
Provocation. Another shooting gallery, except this one's longer, unnecessarily longer. Thinking about it now, maybe I should have ranked it lower on the list, but whatever. It might feel like a chore as well, but it gets points for being more memorable. It's one of the earlier missions in the story, so it's easier to understand what's going on. And the opening section is really cool. It's a little moment of world building that manages to catch your attention. Your escape at the end is also crazy, but I just think the level itself could have been shorter.
Use your Z-tracks to access the skydeck.
Major Gordon's ordered another attack on the enemy stronghold beyond this ridge.
Any word on supplies?
They're coming.
When?
Just get up the hill, Polanski.
I have to be honest with you guys, I personally don't like this one, but it has some value. At first, the atmosphere is really on point here. The darkness, the pouring rain, the unforgiving Japanese soldiers all come together to form this gruesome depiction of war. This is always the mission that makes me reflect about the war itself and how horrible it was. It really reminds me of the HBO show The Pacific.
We got him on the truck.
We're moving out.
2,
You
3.
leaving?
Push ahead and take Shuri Castle.
But we're running on empty here.
You'll have a supply drop in the
okay?
Tomorrow? How the hell are we supposed to hold out till tomorrow? This is bullshit. You hear this, Sarge? We ain't getting shit till tomorrow morning.
Intel says Shuri Castle is mostly deserted. Look on the bright side. After this, you boys will probably get relieved and be on the road.
Yeah? That's what we thought after Piccadilly.
All call signs. Federation forces have entered our airspace. Report to your stations. Launching alert 5 aircraft to intercept.
We gotta help them clear the deck, then find transportation to the ground.
The next 3 entries on the list are all chronological in the Ghost campaign. They're all part of the same event, this massive counterattack on the Federation. And All or Nothing is the first of the 3. An attack on the last American aircraft carrier after the US got screwed. And it's a nice one, very fun to play. But it's a little too short and a little too forgettable.
GPS is functional. Tanks prepped and ready.
I got this side. Ready? Lift!
Incoming, multiple bogies inbound.
Man down! Man down! Opening cargo bay doors! Cargo bay, take it! Stevens, give me a hand! Hang on! I'm releasing the tank!
The second of the trio. This is mostly a tank mission, but a super tank that is, going from 0 to 60 in less than a second and sporting a guided missile launcher. Overall it's okay, I guess it's a very exaggerated scenario, but in the end it's fun. Also, in this one you actually get out of your tank once. I mean, it's very scripted and cinematic, but I'm glad they included it. There's also a boots on the ground section, but that is completely forgettable apart from a cool breach section. Loki's hired just for being pretty to look at. Fighting space will always be intriguing, but other than that the level is quite short and sometimes it can be disorienting to know where the enemies are. But I guess that's to be expected.
Charge is set! Here's hoping these things work up here.
To play a part in this glorious battle. When our flag flies over the city, our enemies' defeat and humiliation will be beyond question. Our vengeance will be complete.
This one is really memorable. Heart of the Reich is really awesome for its portrayal of the final Russian attack against the Reichstag. The setting, the music, it's a great build up to the finale of the game. But is the level fun? Not really. Don't get me wrong, it's always incredible to storm the Germans, but your objective here is to destroy flak guns, which is the most overused objective in all of World War II shooters, especially COD. And if you move too quickly, you have to sit on the doorstep of the Reichstag waiting for the scripted sequence to finally trigger.
Move inside! This is what you came here for! Kill them all!
Control, the orbital weapons got a successful test fire ping.
Roger, Mosley. Tracking weapon dry fire signal.
Hey Baker, here's our ride. Let's head in.
Payload, this is Open Control. Ready to receive.
Load and control. We're heading back to debrief the new crew.
Now, I like Ghost Stories more for the space section. I was really impressed the first time I played through it back when the game launched. And just like Loki, it's really pretty to look at. Also, it's more dynamic than Loki, even if it's more scripted. The part on the ground, however, well, the very beginning I find nice that we get a moment where the main characters are just hanging around and not really worried about anything. But that's cut short, and the rest is really unremarkable. And I can never not notice the way they reused the animation from Modern Warfare 2.
Descending. 50 meters. Oxygen levels look good. Scarecrow, start the clock.
This one got a lot of flack before the game came out due to all the state-of-the-art fish crap they said in the trailer, but the level itself ain't bad, and you should get props for just for being a water level that doesn't suck. But really, it's really impressive what they did here. The scenery looks beautiful and the set pieces are really awesome. The only thing I have against it are those goddamn sharks.
Hurry up, they're coming. Damn it, get the hell, Logan!
Downtown Zurich.
Hey! Still with us? Welcome back.
Taylor.
Yeah. Do you know what's happening to you?
I think this is the one people remember the most when you talk about the Black Ops 3 story, and I get why. The visuals are really impressive, and here you can still get what's going on in the story. It's also nice how the level puts you through different scenarios and lets you experiment with the various game's mechanics. It's basically a glorified tutorial, but a cool one. The dialogue can get a little cringy sometimes, but it doesn't overstay its welcome, and sets up a lot of the plot points that show up later in the story.
It's gonna help you understand how much of a badass motherfucker you are now. Remember, we still don't have the last piece of the puzzle. How in the hell they got the explosives on board the train?
Die dreckigen Schweine. Was? Nur billigen Plunder, der sie wohl an ihre Heimat erinnern sollte.
Nein! Großes Schwein, du hättest wieder tot bleiben sollen!
Was ist das?
Dimitri! Finish those rats! Once again, you cheat death.
Their Land, Their Blood is really fun to play. It feels like a level that doesn't take itself too serious. It's more free for you to roam. Sometimes you can choose which path you want to take, and it doesn't have many scripted events. It also has a lot of weapon variety, from a PPSH to a MG42. It really lets you play with the Germans. Also, the outskirts setting is more colorful and doesn't feel as dark as the rest of the campaign. And of course, you can ride a tank.
Ride on one of the tanks. You have earned the rest. German, you have not. You walk.
Adler's late.
No, love, we're early. Adler should be checking in right about...
Park, we're in position.
Copy that. We're moving to flank.
This is actually the level that inspired me to make this series. Why, you might ask? Well, I started wondering how come in the same game you had missions so awesome like the one in East Berlin, and at the same time missions that are meh. End of the line is just that. Meh. Not only is there no variety to the gameplay, but you're fighting Cuban soldiers, which you can't get more generic than that. I get that Cold War was rushed to meet the yearly release, and that's probably why the mission feels a little shallow. And also why my game goes berserk whenever I try to record any footage. I mean, just look at it. but it feels a little underwhelming. Also, I don't get why they gave the ability to choose who you want to save at the end. I mean, who the hell saves Lazar?
Sister, wake up!
Adair, is that you?
Yes, let me see you. Wake up, Farah.
Captive isn't as outrageous as Hometown, but the whole torture scene is of poor taste as well. I don't feel offended by its inclusion in the game, but turning waterboarding into a minigame, and again, portraying Russian as monsters while ignoring everything the US did during its stay in Iraq and Afghanistan, isn't dumb, it's propaganda. But that's only the beginning of the level, and the rest is actually pretty nice. Playing as the underdog is always captivating, and the attention of detail given to how Farah handles is very commendable. The sniper section is very engaging, and I'm really glad they allow you to blow the damn bastard with an RPG. And I can't forget to mention that you meet a young Captain Price.
Stay on it. Bravo 6, wheels up in 2.
طب بسرعة يلا ميركي
زلمة كفو Here, Alex. Put this on.
How do I look?
It'll do.
Embedded is an odd one. It's a mission focused on world building, where the focus is witnessing what the population of Urzikstan suffers under the rule of the Russians. And for that, there is little combat, with a bigger emphasis on stealth. And what I think is more interesting is the use of environment props to get around the Russian soldiers, like using a canister as a silencer, or a brick to blend in and to smash a Russian in the head. Overall, it's okay. There are interesting moments, however, subsequent playthroughs might feel a little boring.
We're up, Mason. Locked and loaded. Shitheads think they can hide from us. Time to send a message.
Operation Chaos is a short secondary mission just like Operation Red Circus. However, this one feels more concise, feels cooler. Instead of just spawning, in this one you get delivered by chopper. Instead of searching room to room, you follow your target to a cheap motel and blast him with a shotgun. The setting on this one is really on point, and that breach scene really reminds me of that movie with Javier Bardem, No Country for Old Men.
Hey, you still with us?
Yeah, I just zoned out for a second there.
Not a bad idea. I think we just traded one bad situation for another.
Another convoluted level from Black Ops 3. In Rise and Fall, you have to hold the line against an all-out assault from the NRC. Yeah, I figured out their name. On the streets of Cairo. It's okay, there are a lot of set pieces and a lot of shooting. It gets points for the interrogation in the beginning, and the whole planting spikes and blowing the ground part, but it also loses some for featuring too many of those damn tanks, and for the confusing plot. As a matter of fact, can anyone explain to me what the dead system they keep referring to in the game means?
What is the dead system?
Because at first they say it works in their favor, but later on the level it's the opposite.
Dead system's down! Repeat, dead system is down!
Shit, take cover! Coming in hot. Gonna be a rough landing. Reverse thrusters.
one of the later levels in the Advanced Warfare campaign. Throttle should be praised for allowing you to use the gadgets you were given, in this case the grappling hook. Not only that, but it's a more open-ended level where you can tackle the objective the way you want. Do you want to destroy the turret by blowing it, or killing the guy controlling it? How about a combination of both? However, the level is short, and this more open part only comes after a fighter jet section, which is on rails and is very out of place.
What's those traces?
The boss wants the youngest one alive.
Sin City is pretty standard. I think the rundown Las Vegas setting is really nice. It's something that is a little cliche, but that is cool to see in a COD game. And also the story beats are cool. But when it comes to the gameplay, there isn't much to talk about. There is little variety in it. The only different element here is when Riley gets shot and you have to carry him.
We're all numb by Sullivan's death. We just never saw it coming. I still can't believe it. Most solid, dependable, and courageous Marine we've ever known. Blink of an eye. Gone. Now it's down to me. And me alone. To lead these men, my brothers, safely through this campaign.
Hard Landing, I think, is a well-designed level. The setting is neat. At first the thick jungles and later the airfield. Not only that, but the whole thing feels like it's designed around the flamethrower. It gives you not a lot of ammo at the beginning, so that you may feel compelled to use the flamethrower when it comes to it. And the scenario is constructed in a way where the enemy is always in medium to close range, which maintains the effectiveness of the flamethrower, which feels really good to use. And besides that, the level also gives you a few different guns to toy with, like a bazooka and an M1 with a grenade launcher. Going back to the opening again, the atmosphere of the swamp is really on point. The fog, the trees, the water, the environmental noises, even the ominous soundtrack all culminate to give you a sense of insecurity.
Stay sharp.
But said that, I don't personally enjoy it all that much. Maybe it's because I've played too much of it in the past, but it simply doesn't click to me. The section at the end isn't very interesting also.
About Marigny. Impressive.
I can't take all the credit. Just doing our job.
And a fine job it was, but a warm-up, I'm afraid. Look, this is no ordinary German supply train. It's a fortress on wheels. Our liaison in the resistance, Rousseau, will provide support if possible, but attacks on their network could mean we're on our own.
The fate of Paris is in your hands.
I know a lot of people might curse at me for putting SOE over Hard Landing, because it really is an over-the-top, ludicrous, scripted event all throughout, and it really fits better in a Fast and Furious movie rather than a serious World War II game. But isn't that what we want? If I want a realistic depiction of war, I'm going to watch a Vice News video, not play Call of Duty. And this mission is crazy. I mean, just look at it.
Your way through the jungle alone. You found a bunker. Do you remember the bunker bell? We need to know what's inside that bunker.
This one is even more crazy. What they did here is awesome. The amount of choices they give you is freaking cool. and the way the scenery changes around you is also neat. They could have done another generic dream sequence as we have seen in lots of other games, and no one would even have bothered. But they put in the effort and took it a step forward. Congratulations, Treyarch or Raven or whoever did this part. But it is a dream sequence nonetheless, and I'm not very fond of those.
Our leaders continue to weaken under this threat.
Jesus.
Alice is trying to take control of the carrier's weapon systems. We need to get jammers on those rail guns and biotechnicians some time.
We've got enemy troops all over the carrier.
They're gonna try and take the ship's bridge. Let's move.
We won't let them get away with this.
Armada has its moments. It's not bad, it's just okay. Like a lot of others we have seen so far. I guess what I don't like about it is the initial segments where you're fighting the deck. The layout of the map feels annoying to traverse and you have to get to one side and then to another, and it feels repetitive. But when you enter the ship, it gets better. There is a night vision section, a juggernaut section, well, not a juggernaut, but you get what I mean, and the part where you destroy the other ships. It's a nice little variety.
Signs this is Overlook. We're seeing enemy armor in the Palm Grove west of the river.
The first time 10-year-old me played this mission, he was mesmerized. An epic final assault on Al-Assad's stronghold. A brutal display of American force turned sour. This mission is epic. At least on paper. Don't get me wrong, I must praise the cinematic moments here. The early push into the city, blowing the statue, the daring rescue, and of course the ending. It's all exhilarating. However, there's something that I simply can't put my finger on. It just doesn't click to me.
No one's gonna brand us heroes or villains. They don't know us. As for me, I've been chasing this ghost for 13 years.
Well, when you have multiple endings in a game, one is bound to be underwhelming. And I don't think that the final countdown is bad, but you can all agree that the other ending is the better one. There are two things wrong with the level: the runtime and the disappointing ending. The level is really short, clocking around 5 minutes, and seeing the satellites blowing up is cool, but that's it. After that, the plot just wraps itself up and the game is over. Unlike the bad ending, where it defies your expectations and sets up a lot of stuff. But the opening is really cool.
Let's take Perseus off the air.
Fuck me, that loosened some fillings. Light 'em up! Bad guys, lots of bad guys.
If Zussman's alive, he's across that bridge. We just gotta take it first.
Alright, there she is, the last bridge over the Rhine. We get this convoy across, we're in the heartland. We'll bust them open. Look, it's all or nothing. It's all been leading to this. Hold on!
The Rhine is underwhelming. The mission itself isn't awful. It has its moments, like the bridge explosion and the Nazis surrendering. But it's a little short. And it's disappointing because it's the final mission of the World War II campaign, and it doesn't feel like the grand finale we were expecting. I know it's hard to create a bombastic ending to a World War II game, considering it's a historical event, but I mean, we're talking about COD World War II, the same game that gave us this. And since we were talking about the Rhine, we might as well talk about the ending of the game. Look, I personally thought their depiction of the concentration camps felt more like, hey, do you remember the Holocaust? Yeah, that was very bad. But I can understand why the devs decided to take a light approach to the matter. They were really stuck between a rock and a hard place. They couldn't ignore its existence, and at the same time, couldn't depict it in its entirety, risking becoming offensive. Especially in a game that has such a huge market appeal. But having said that, I still think they could have done more. Quoting a Polygon article, when it comes to the intimate and targeted horror of concentration camps, Call of Duty World War II opts for a more antiseptic presentation. The game aspires to be like the great World War II films, but is unwilling to go to the lengths those films do to present the truth, as grim and monstrous as it is.
Beaten, starved, and worked to the bone.
You think because you said nothing, you are strong? 貴様は強くない。強情なやつめ。Don't
tell him a fucking thing.
米兵どもはみんなこうなのか?
Semper Fi is a very memorable one, mainly due to the opening scene, which I will not be showing here in its entirety because, well, you know why. But also because it's an entertaining level. The setting is awesome, the atmosphere is again really on point, it's not too long or too short, it has some cool moments, and overall it's a well-rounded level.
Where's the fireworks? Tell me those charges weren't duds. We better not be.
Company's tank is stuck half a click north of here. We gotta hustle. Let's go!
Move it! Move it! Clear! Keep moving!
The Bog is a really cool level. The night setting distinguishes it from a lot of other Middle East settings, and the way fire and warm street lamps illuminate the scenario gives it a unique level of realism, even with the 2007 graphics. Also, moments like destroying the enemy fortified positions, the tanks, the AA guns, and placing the IR beacon make it so you're not doing the same things over and over. A nice package overall.
The last 4 years have been huge for you. In the wake of the KVA attacks, Atlas has become the world's biggest corporation, and you now preside over the world's largest standing military. So what's next for Jonathan Irons?
Utopia is a very frenetic chapter where you have to escape the Atlas forces in the middle of Baghdad. New Baghdad. There are a lot of exciting little moments like running from a drone swarm in the rooftops or escaping through the canals in a crazy motorboat. It also gives you a few gadgets to play with like the mag gloves and the grappling hook. Furthermore, I adore the setting here. At first, the streets of future Baghdad feel very vivid with a lot of small details, and the verticality of the buildings make it really fun to play. Beyond that, there are the skyscrapers, which are a lot of fun as well.
Keep going! Jump, Nichel!
Yes, sir. All yours. I've requisitioned a striker from the 8th Armored. Honey Badger's a mean bitch, sir. She'll walk you in. The Russians are burning through our defenses and our intel. Can't let them take this corner. Just point it out on the map, sir. They won't hit you.
Exodus is sort of a classic COD mission to me. It's one I loved playing as a kid, especially because it lets you explore a lot of the house interiors. and for some reason I found it very amusing back then. But even today I like exploring that giant mansion with the pool. Beyond that, the combat here is nice, and using the honey badger is always fun. And while recording footage for the video, I was impressed at how well the Modern Warfare 2 graphics still hold up today. The textures, the shadows, the foliage of the trees all look really well. And all thanks in part to the game's more colorful design. My only gripe here is that the combat, while fun, does not change throughout.
So let's check out these tats. Not your average trooper, huh?
Good. Get a couple of photos for G2, and check the bodies for intel.
What?
Shove us not like this. Overlord, the HBI is dead.
Like you remember it, huh? This place is depressing the hell out of me. Come on.
You know, for a game that spoke so much about the inclusion of a companion dog in the game, it speaks a lot when there are only 1 or 2 missions where he plays a big part. This is one of them. Yeah, in No Man's Land you use Riley to help traverse a forest and a military camp undetected. And I like using him. His attack animations are really unique and satisfying. This is also the mission where you meet the ghosts, Keegan and Merrick. The set piece with the wolves that introduces them is just really cool. And I wouldn't say scary, but the wolves feel really menacing. The only problem I have with this one is the combat segments feel a little out of place or rather uneventful. Oh, and I can't forget the awesome breaching scene.
Riley, search.
Atlas is practically a tutorial from beginning to end, and it still manages to be really entertaining. It introduces Kevin Spacey as Jonathan Irons, as well as the Atlas Corporation and all that it entails. And just let me say one thing, Spacey might be a despicable person, but boy does this man know how to act. He dominates every scene he's in and steals the show. You could honestly just watch a compilation of his scenes on YouTube and enjoy the game just the same. Okay, maybe I'm stretching a little bit, but whatever, moving on. The presentation here is incredible. There's so much to unpack. That sweet transition in the beginning, the simulation twist, the car ride through the facility, the infirmary section, it all just works. The grenade and firing training though can feel a little boring. And this will depend on your opinion, but this is where the meme was born.
Prepared for close quarter fighting. They'll come at us from all sides. Watch each other's backs. Don't get caught out.
Relentless is a level that's not necessarily original. It brings nothing new to the table, but it is fun, and it's intense. I think that, again, the thick Japanese jungles are really immersing, and the opening really gets you going. Beyond that, mowing down enemy soldiers with a Browning and a freaking AA gun is awesome, as well as blowing their face with a shotgun.
With the line at Silo not broken, nothing stands between the Red Army and Berlin.
Ring of Steel also doesn't bring any new dynamic, but it manages to be even more fun, more intense, more epic. The first push into Berlin territory by the Russians, a colossal event, awesome to experience. And killing Nazis with the Mosing is just so satisfying. In this level there's also a kind of out of place but it still manages to be entertaining part, and the Asylum, where for no reason the combat takes a halt for a minute to show you how scary the place is, but when the action picks back up, it's really fun, and it ends with you chasing away the Germans, a very memorable moment.
But here, once again, the Federation was attacking us, and we were headed into the chaos. Somewhere, in the middle of that battle, was our father. We had to find him.
The context here is really cool. An amphibious attack on the coast of Santa Monica. You don't see that every day. Levels where you play as the underdog are always appealing, and here's no different. The best part is definitely using the drone to blow up the enemy vehicles. But having said that, I think they could have done more of the idea. The battle is over too soon, and you don't get to see a panoramic shot of the beach. Now, I know that doesn't mean much, but what I'm trying to say is, compare this battle to the New York battle in Modern Warfare 3. That one was really epic. In Homecoming, you only get to use the drone and the machine gun for a few minutes before they are both destroyed. And I just wanted to shoot more bad guys.
Rhine's personal estate.
So this is what thousands of dead bodies will buy you.
I'll track down Irons. We need to be there when he meets with his contact. Alone on me. Let's move. Mitchell.
Sentinel is unlike a lot of other levels in the series, just for not being as linear. Although I know that's not saying much when it comes to COD. And what I mean by less linear here is that most of it is a section where you have to infiltrate a server room and an office without alerting anyone. To do that, you decide how to approach the situation, deciding to take down or only wait out the guards and drones. But to be honest, whenever I play it, I just use the grappling hook to go over the roofs. Not much of a dilemma. And after you reach the office, the level becomes linear again, and you have to follow Cormac. But I think it only adds to the level, with some serious story moments happening here. And oh, that end is just oh so sweet. This is just D-Day, if D-Day had happened in Japan and not in France. And it's just as cool. Little Resistance starts with a very cinematic moment that hypes you up for the battle, and then presents you with all the brutality of war. After that, you continue to move forward into the Japanese positions until you capture a stronghold. There are a lot of different elements here that deserve your attention, like fighting Banzai chargers, being able to call airstrikes at will, and if you do the Easter egg, using the ray gun. And the fact that it's one of the earlier missions in the campaign, along with its cinematic set pieces, makes it one of the more memorable missions of the game.
Sullivan, no, hold on, you're gonna be okay. Corbin!
One of the most memorable missions in the COD franchise, and also one of the hardest. I take my hat off for anyone who has ever completed this one in Veteran. Completing this in under a minute is a feat only few men or women can accomplish. It's lower only due to its extremely short runtime, but it is a very awesome level. It's a mission full of charm, where it feels like the devs really put their hearts into it. There isn't much to say about Game Over. It's an awesome short ending chapter for the COD 4 campaign. The car chase is really bonkers and the last stand on the bridge feels really epic. There are only two things that bug me on this level. They're nitpicks, I know, but hear me out. Why does Briggs drag you from the cover of a car into the open where you could get shot, and it sits in the open and dies like a moron? If you would have just ducked behind cover, probably all of them could have survived. Also, why does he start talking about beer out of nowhere?
Enemy presence substantial.
It's just too hot, man. But room temperature? Please, a beer should be ice cold.
A lager maybe, or a glass of water like you drink, but a pint of stout.
I'm gonna have to school y'all both when we get back stateside.
General 1, take overwatch. Check. Center on overwatch. Boom.
The Wolf's Den is definitely not boring, and I know that's far from a compliment, but it's simply one that I often forget about. It's by no means bad, it certainly has a lot of variety and dynamic to it. In the beginning you're cleaning a house, Modern Warfare 2019 style, which is neat, and later you're fighting a cave complex in a poorly lit environment. And when I mean poorly lit, I mean almost pitch black. The moment where you escape the burning underground is sweet, as is disarming the bomb vest. But I don't know, there isn't much else to it. I don't know what you guys think about the Modern Warfare 3 campaign, but I love it. I think it was everything it should have been and more. Like, it concluded the classic Modern Warfare story in a brilliant way, tackling every point that should have been addressed and leaving no stone unturned. And it also gave us flashbacks to some of the most memorable moments in the story, like no Russian and one shot, one kill. Beyond that, it had no right to be as epic as it was, and even Down the Rabbit Hole, which I think is one of the weaker ones, is really awesome. It feels weak because fighting enemies in caves and underground complexes is one of the oldest tropes there is, especially when you're fighting Russians. But the end, oh the end, it's just straight out of a Michael Bay movie.
Grab your RPG! Truck, cover the right side! You better be right behind me!
Zurich is where the quarters go.
This can't be. Kane! Can you hear me? Are you seeing this? Say something! Please!
Demon Within is one wild ride throughout. It starts with a mech fight, and then there's a baby, then World War II, then dire wolves, and then zombies of all things. It must be praised for creativity alone. Seriously, this is a better LSD trip simulation than LSD Dream Emulator. And the visuals are amazing. The moment where the map shifts 90 degrees just like an Inception, and the guys you kill go flying up like balloons is just crazy. It's a level unlike anything we have seen before or since in the franchise. But it's not without its flaws. It feels weightless. Because it's all a dream, everyone you kill is simply an artificial representation of a person, and so there's no reason to care about anything. Also, we can't forget it's Call of Duty we're talking about, which isn't really known for its deep, thoughtful symbolism. So the baby at the beginning probably means nothing. the recreation of World War II, probably just for the hell of it. And do I need to mention zombies? This is a level that is awesome the first time you play it, but that you have no reason to come back to.
You have to end it, please. Kill me. Let me go.
Alright, let's get to work. In this lawless shithole, we can actually feel good about our by any means necessary mandate.
This is one of the most aesthetically unpleasing levels in COD, easily. Everywhere you look is a dark pile of rubble mixed with dirt and seaweed. But I guess that's part of their art direction, in trying to create an atmosphere of pure chaos and isolation from civilization, where anything goes. Or at least that's what I think they were going for in this post-apocalyptic version of Singapore. Anyhow, the level's fine, it's not overly long, and it gives you plenty of opportunity to play with your toys and abilities. Outside of a specific scene, however, most of it is a little bland, with that specific scene being you jumping onto a gigantic moving freighter.
There's a subway tunnel up ahead. It'll take you right to the 54I communication hub.
Been free in 5 seconds.
5 seconds.
Fog of War is a great opening level for Modern Warfare. It serves to introduce the player to what felt like at the time a new era of Call of Duty with a new engine, a retelling of the Modern Warfare story that we all know and love, and the newer, darker tone that comes with this retelling. Right at the beginning and throughout the level, it highlights the new mechanics, the new animations, the ray tracing, which I cannot afford right now, and tons of new stuff. And since this is the first level of the game and also the one most used for promotion, it feels like the one with more attention to detail. It also feels way more scripted than other levels in the game, and I think that's why it works so well.
Work, Alex. Rally at the hook point for egress.
He wants mercy. You do not deserve mercy. What mercy? You should want to die. Wait. He may help us. He can die for us. Muda! This is not war. This is murder.
I'm really looking forward to playing Eviction if they ever decide to remaster COD 5, because it's the prettiest level in the game. Not pretty, but the moment when you watch over the Berlin skyline and see all of the chaos and destruction amidst the dark skies, it looks really freaking good. And the whole level is full of atmosphere. I don't really like playing in the subways, but the rest of the level is awesome. It shows how desperate the Germans were by the end of the war and how hopeless their situation was.
That comes only 2 ways. Fast or slow. Dimitri, it is your choice. Fair enough, you should learn from Dimitri. He understands the nature of mercy killing.
Tell Rourke we're coming for him.
Why don't you just tell me yourself?
You're done, Rourke. Let's finish this.
I think that the Ghost Killer is an entertaining level that feels weak as an ending to the Ghost campaign. The train setting is interesting, making it much difficult to aim as the wagons sway left and right, and the final fight with Rourke is awesome. But it could have been more. It's weak because they created the level with the idea in mind of expanding the story into multiple sequels, which as everyone knows, didn't happen. So now we're left with a cliffhanger that will never be resolved, which really sucks, because they were setting up a plot that at least seemed a little more inventive than usual, with you maybe playing the bad guy. But because everyone acted like Ghost was the worst thing in the history of gaming, that ain't happening.
There ain't gonna be any ghosts. We're gonna destroy him together. Okay.
Rest is up to us.
Troops in the open north side of the bridge. Hopper fire.
Copy. 3-7 northbound.
Good kill, Watson. Good kill.
Bell's run. Let's see who's on.
Cobra! Yalla, yalla! Perimeter's open, Kate. We're moving in.
Into the Furnace, unlike the Ghost Killer, is a satisfying ending. It wraps everything up and concludes Farah's character arc, all while being fun to play. Here, you can use snipers, assault rifles, grenade launchers, a minigun, a shotgun with incendiary rounds, and airstrikes. What more can you ask for? And now, this is not a criticism of the level necessarily, but it's weird for a plot that takes itself so seriously to end like one of those B-action movies, where all the characters come together and they all participate in some way in the final battle, and then the main character kills the villain, says some badass line, and everything explodes. It's exactly like one of those Expendables movies. Terminus is just straight out of a cartoon. Like, the writers just challenged each other to see who could come up with the most absurd ending to the game. Until one of them was like, let's have the player fly inside a robot shooting cars and boats with all of them going boom, and let's have him go inside an underground complex and fight other robots, and then let's have him blow a fucking rocket by sending directly under it and shooting its engines while they're on. And then let's have him drop Kevin Spacey out of a burning building. I feel a little bad putting Charlie Don't Surf this low on the list, because it's one that's really memorable in the franchise. It's a classic, and it's one that I love playing. So why is it so low on the list? Well, because there are a lot of others that are just even better, and that's the case with a lot of levels we have seen so far. But the level's great, the opening is straight out of Black Hawk Down, the urban combat is solid, it has one of the hardest moments to go through in Veteran, fighting a TV station is interesting, and that ending always makes me laugh.
Roger that. I got something better anyway.
Command, this is Red Dog. TV station secure. No sign of Al-Assad. The broadcast is a recording. Over.
Hey, yo, listen.
Yeah.
Big word halitosis.
Roger that, Command. Out.
If I had chosen to rank these levels based solely on how memorable they were, Crew Expendable would be number 1, or maybe behind Loose Ends. Cause sure, All Gillied Up is the one everyone says is the best, but if I mention the name COD 4, the first thing that comes to your mind is Captain Price smoking a cigar amidst the rain. Okay, or maybe they covered the game, but that's besides the point. And that's the reason for that. It's the second level in the game, it has its own multiplayer map, and it was also a big part of the marketing campaigns for the original and the remastered. And beyond that, the level is very scripted and cinematic. My only gripe with it is that there is almost no combat, and the little that there is not fun.
Victor! Electricity!
Blackout is another classic in the franchise. It introduced us to Nikolai, to Night Vision, to Kamarov. It's great how the combat in the chapter feels actually planned, like there is a build up to it. You don't just run in guns blazing, there's coordination. At first you rendezvous with the Loyalists, then you get into position, and only then do you commence the attack. That's cool. Even though at the end Price and Gas just say fuck it and go in guns blazing. Overall, a solid level.
5 men, automatic rifles, frag grenades, 1 German Shepherd. Dogs? I hate dogs. These Russian dogs are like pussycats compared to the ones in Pripyat. It's good to have you back, old man. Roger that.
Look, there are a lot of levels in this list that I'm not sure if I've put them in the right place. There's just too many of them, and they're all subjectively good and bad for different reasons. So, if you don't agree with me on whether a level is too high or too low, that's fine, because I probably don't agree with myself either. And I'm saying this because Contingency is a good level that looks astonishingly beautiful even on the original 2009 graphics. And it's an awesome level, the setting is nice, the combat is fun, and it has all the best characters from the franchise. And just like Charlie Don't Surf and Crew Expendable, it's lower only because there are other levels that I think are even better. Fission is just average. It's actually just a series of shooting galleries with short transitions in between. Okay, I've just described pretty much every level in the series, but here that's even more apparent. Anyway, the only thing unique here is the, well, I don't know if you could call it a boss battle, but the skirmish with the giant tank. This doesn't add to the level. On the contrary, it just adds another hurdle. Especially because all you need to do is sit in a corner and shoot at it until it trips and dies.
Good job, Mitchell.
Goalpost is not a bad level, but it feels flat. Like, the idea of the level is cool, and it has some great moments like going through a garage inside a tank, mowing down enemies with a minigun. However, the rest of it feels uninspired. It's this great assault on Hamburg, but then when you get in the middle of it, it's just another average shooting gallery, especially because the colors are all muted, to the point where a lot of the times, it's hard to distinguish enemies from the scenery.
We found the mainframe.
What? You know what the KGB does to double agents? Yep. Da. If they win this season, it's almost worth facing the fighting squad. Eh.
This is a spiritual sequel to a much more memorable level, which is WMD in the original Black Ops. And it's a nice homage to that game. It has lots of little references and callouts that fans of the original will enjoy. One example being Steiner's pistol or the numbers hallucinations. But it manages to stand on its own as a nice level. It's nothing groundbreaking, but the setting is nice and the combat is okay. The highlight of the level, beyond the Easter eggs, is a shootout over the server container.
Echo 3-1.
Sergeant Griggs.
All day.
Call me Alex.
No locals on this one. Not my call. You Kareem?
All day.
Nice work hitting the Russians.
We share friends and enemies.
Bitfali. Bishufak.
Let's roll, Alex.
Hunting Party is a mostly by-the-book squad level. It's a good mission, but for the most part just a shooting gallery, with its only unique part being the hospital. which is where the combat turns into a close quarters engagement and there is a significant change of pace. And this section in particular is really great, from the bad guys using desperate civilians as distractions, or from the bad guys hiding amidst the bodies. It adds new elements to the conflict that heighten the experience.
We got you, brother man. You're all right.
Good, Alex?
Good, Griggs. Omar Suleiman, you are now in custody of the Special Operations Force. Do exactly as you're told, or you're a dead man.
Hell yeah.
What? How the hell did you...
Citizens of Cairo! Now is your time! Take back your city!
Lotus Towers feels like a really unique idea for a level. This gigantic commercial and I guess residential skyscraper where you topple a dictator in the first 2 minutes and have to get to the top of the building while watching a popular revolution unfold in front of your eyes. And let me tell you, the thing is massive. You keep going up for like 20 minutes and it doesn't seem to end. Oh, and when you reach the top, you have to fight a giant gunship with a minigun. All while your mind is going haywire because of an AI that infected your brain. Yeah, this was the point that the story completely lost me. But this is a very frantic level, where even worker droids turn hostile and start attacking people, and you'll be killing a lot of droids here. The scenario also looks amazing, and the only problem here, besides the fact that you can barely understand what's going on, is that it goes on for too damn long. It takes almost an hour to complete it, and by the end, you're not even paying attention.
You won. You got what you wanted.
Hendricks! Where are you going?
Imagine yourself in a frozen forest.
Got a positive ID. Whoever these guys are, they're not happy to see him. Jones, we have a situation here. Get down! Get down!
Takedown will always have kind of a soft spot in my heart just for being set in my home country. Yes, the one where nobody wants to go. Not that I'm from Rio though. But anyway, the level is fun on its own. The verticality and narrow corridors of the favela makes the combat a lot more frenetic and engaging, especially when the enemies pop right in front of you. My only problem here is that the beginning area, while fun, suffers from infinitely spawning enemies, which is never good. Apart from that, the level looks surprisingly pretty. And I mean surprising because they took a favela, and have you seen pictures of a real favela before? They're a mess. The developers took that and made it into something pleasant to look at. Not only that, but unlike a lot of other levels in the series, where everything is made by a muted palette of colors, here, everything is vibrant. And as a quick note, this level also gave us the classic scene with Ghost.
Check out the favela for any signs of Rojas. That's where this guy is headed.
Two guys took down an entire military base. That sums up Cliffhanger really well. This level specifically was the moment where Call of Duty went from a kind of realistic depiction of war to just being the gaming equivalent of the Fast and Furious movies, world-spanning conspiracy thrillers where any semblance of believability is thrown out the window and all that's left is guns, guts, and glory. And the level is just that, a clusterfuck of weapons, explosions, and snowmobiles. All really blue. My only problem is the early stealth moments. They're interesting, but too straightforward and simplistic.
Shepard will be a hero, because all you need to change the world is one good lie and a river of blood. He's about to complete the greatest trick a liar ever played on history. His truth will be the truth, but only if he lives, and we die.
Endgame is the second to best ending to a game in the entire series. You can't argue on that. Apart from number 1, which you'll see down the line, none other even comes close. I've replayed that knife throwing scene so many times now, and it never gets old. It's never not satisfying. The level is only lower because there isn't much to it apart from that scene. The chase on the river is cool, but there's nothing besides that.
What's your status? Is the safe house still secure?
For now. The camera feeds show the Immortals are closing in fast, burning and destroying everything in their way.
Yeah. No shit.
For some reason, Vengeance is the only level in Black Ops 3 that lets you choose between going stealth or loud. And I don't know why they did that, but it adds replayability to the mission. Beyond that, the story premise is engaging. It's also very gruesome and gory. Civilians are getting stabbed and shot everywhere you look. And the scenario is great. All the streets of Singapore are very detailed, and the abundance of colorful lights and oriental architecture makes it all an endearing map. And here, the presence of one of those awful robots doesn't annoy me as much. It feels more organic to the level. This level has been cited as one of the most controversial levels in video game history, said the COD Wiki. I mean, is anyone surprised? To be honest, I'm not sure how I should feel about this one. On one hand, it feels wrong to defend a mission where you commit mass murder of innocent civilians, but you aren't forced to shoot anyone if you so choose. And I'm not sure this is the right word to use, but it feels creative. I like that they deviated from the standard format of hero versus villain. I want more set pieces like these. And apart from the controversy, the level is solid. The fight against the FSB is unlike anything we had seen before. The airport setting is rich in detail, and the twist at the end is really memorable. The whole level is.
We've sent a strong message with this attack. Knock it off.
That was no message. This is a message. The Americans thought he could deceive us. When they find out why, all of Russia will cry for war.
Let's kick this off.
Holy shit. Number 100. I can't believe we've actually come this far. And if you're still watching this, first of all, thank you very much. And second of all, stick around, because now we're getting to the good stuff. Now, Clean House. One of the few levels that people recognize from Modern Warfare 2019. Full of controversy, just like the last one. Except that now, it's for being too realistic. Which is fair, considering the political turmoil we've been living on this past few years. And considering also that this is the only level in the series, hell, the only level in the entire gaming industry where you can shoot a baby in his mother's arms. But beyond the delicacy of the context, the realism really makes the level stand out from the rest, especially with the quality of the sound design. Not only that, the suburbs of London were the perfect setting for them to introduce this kind of gameplay.
You're welcome. You lost something.
Red light, green light would have been just another generic secret Russian compound mission, if it wasn't for the makeshift US town inside the damn thing. Seriously, I feel like they've put a lot of love here. The recreation of an 80s themed city checks all the boxes, including a fast food joint with its own talking mascot, and a fully functioning arcade for no reason, just because they wanted to. The earlier stealth sections of the level were really dull, but this whole part gives it a lot of life.
Quantum entanglement. This single device has more processing power than your entire military infrastructure.
Solarium is one long display of all the futuristic tech in Black Ops 2. You have gloves that attach to any surface, you have wingsuits, you have cloaking camo, you have explosive darts, you have Roombas with assault rifles, you have automated sentries, and you have the name of the level. And it's all cool stuff. However, even though it's a fun and honestly good looking level, it's also a little repetitive. Not too repetitive, but the combat formula doesn't change. And, for example, you fight the same enemies 3 different times in the same room.
Daddy's boy. Zakhaev's son, commander of the ultra-nationalist forces in the field. Rotten apple doesn't fall far from the tree. The loyalist Kamarov has got a location on the kid.
And the little punk'll know how to find Zakhaev.
The sins of our fathers.
Ain't it a bitch?
The way this mission starts is brilliant. I love it when there's preparation and coordination, instead of one guy doing everything by himself like a superhero. And the way they execute the attack on the convoy is perfect. The second half of the level isn't as good, but it's alright. The chase scene loses momentum in the middle, but having the Black Hawk support is sweet, and the ending is unforgettable.
On the ground. Take columns down, we're getting overrun! This AO is lost!
Again, coordination, supporting roles. I love that, and this level has it. Well, at least until everything goes south. But really, the level's great. It's an action-packed rescue mission where everything goes wrong. Where a freaking 20-story building is dropped on your head, and you have to crawl and slide through it to move forward. It's also a level where you can call in A-10 strafing runs and fight alongside German cavalry.
We can't risk it! Overlord, negative precious cargo. We lost her.
Induction is a very solid level. It's the first of the Advanced Warfare campaign and it's a great introduction. It manages to immerse you into the futuristic scenario, much better than Black Ops 3 did. Seriously, from the dropping pods to the drone swarms and the articulated tanks, it's packed to the brim with cool details. You can also use the car door as a shield, which is very advertised during the marketing campaigns, even though it's not present in the multiplayer and you can use it in a total of 3 levels in the story mode. I think, maybe 2. But I digress. The rendition of Seoul is beautiful, the city skyline is gorgeous and all the interiors are fully detailed. Also, they used a lot of strong colors to illuminate the scenario, which gives it a very vivid look. And finally, if I'm not wrong, this is the only level in the entire series where we fight North Koreans. That doesn't mean anything, but I just thought it'd be interesting to mention.
Victor, it is time.
Yes, Dmitri. Time to hunt down the last remnants of the fascist Reich.
Nevsky, grab the gear. We are moving out.
Project Nova feels like a homage from Treyarch to the older Russian campaigns of COD. It's a mission that feels nostalgic to play amidst the Cold War era setting that the rest of Black Ops takes place in. It's just nice to see classic weapons like the Mosin and the PPSH remodeled in more modern graphics. Modern to the level of 2010, of course. In this level we also got to see and hear Dmitry Petrenko for the first time, since in World War he was the silent protagonist. We also got to play as Raznov, which is never boring. Moreover, the level looks amazing, and the story moments are just nerve-wracking. They show how despicable Dragovich and Kravchenko are, and my god, the introduction to Steiner is just perfect. He looks like evil personified.
Point that weapon at me, Russian dog!
You will take me to Dragovich.
As I looked into the German's eyes, I saw all the evil that the fascists like still burning strong.
All right, boys, we're rerouting to the Stat Theater. The first platoon needs us. Enemy dispositions unknown. Switching to radio and intercom.
Radio master on!
Rapson, we're taking a right to cut back to the theater.
Right ahead! Roger that, Brass!
Abrams, Poole, hold position here with 2nd platoon and cover this flank until we get back.
Collateral Damage has some interesting moments. The Sherman section can be frustrating when you need to manage a Panzer, a Tiger, and the clunky controls all at once. But when things are flowing properly, the tank is actually fun to use. Especially because the streets that you drive through, as well as the rest of the level, are all very designed and detailed. And although a lot of people criticize the game for being too linear, I personally believe that in some instances, that actually makes the game better. For example, instead of having large and empty open areas, we have very tightly packed streets that enhance the immersion. Of course, that is until God won't allow you to destroy your target. Here we also have a few unique moments where you have to extract civilians, and a moment where you have to carry a little grow and sneak around German soldiers. It's pretty straightforward, but it makes the level more memorable, considering it's one of the few that actually feature children.
Hey, there's nothing we can do.
Houston, this is ISS Control. Any word on
I love Second Son. It's far from the best of the series, and it has its flaws, but it's just so neat. Like, there are so many tiny moments and lines of dialogue that distinguish it from the rest of the missions. It begins in a last stand in a down helicopter right next to the Washington Monument, and it's all scripted to feel as hopeless as possible, with your buddy getting shot right in front of you, everybody running out of ammo, and the Russians surrounding you. It's so epic. Then all gets interrupted by the classic ISS scene, and after that, all electronics are down. Choppers are falling from the sky and everything's going to shit. It's freaking awesome. And after that, it takes a complete shift in tone when everything goes dark and silent, and your squad is left alone. The Washington setting is cool in its own, but with the atmosphere they've added here is even better, especially when the rain starts pouring down. And like I said, what I love here is the little details, like your optics being down, collecting dog tags from other Marines, the Russians trapped inside the BTR, not being able to identify the enemy through the darkness. It's all really sweet.
Whoa, check out the seal on this door. I thought the president's bunker was under the west wing.
No, that's just for tourists. This must be the real thing. Open it up.
Real or not, man, this place is history. Hope they got out in time.
Number 1 is in!
Get out of here! Moving to holding pattern. Terminal is due north, Staff Sergeant. I don't need coordinates from you, Ethan.
Contact!
Right side!
Alright, Operation Port Armor. Our first from Infinite Warfare. Just so you guys know, I won't be including any of the secondary missions from the game, because it wouldn't add anything interesting to these videos and would only pad the runtime. And it's already hard enough to write something different, let alone unique, for 180 levels that more or less feel the same. But enough talk, how's the level? It's cool. It's about right through a lunar station, then a jackal fight, and finally an assault on an enemy destroyer. The thing with a lot of Infinite Warfare levels is that they go on for a long time, with multiple distinct sections that you can even select on the menu screen. But even though they're really long, they don't feel as tiring as they do on Black Ops 3, and that's simply because of variety. Instead of going through incessant shooting galleries one after another, in this game they added a lot of different elements that break the monotony and make the combat itself more interesting, while also removing the overcomplicated skill system of Black Ops 3.
Tiger scars are clear!
Copy clear. Engaging. Weapons loose. Hell yeah!
Good effect on target!
You good? Cormac, our pitbull's out of action. Proceeding on foot.
To be honest, this level is just a shooting gallery that is only higher on the list because it takes place on the Golden Gate Bridge. Which, come on, it's an awesome setting, especially when it collapses.
Everybody ready? Here we go! Off the ramp! There's no cover! That was an order, goddammit! Drop it!
This is far from a bad level. In fact, I personally had fun with it. However, I have to admit that it's only this high on the list because it's D-Day. And outside the bombastic and honestly well done opening, which was in fact really good, it's a series of bunkers that you have to go through one by one. So, not much variety there. But it has its moments, like holding the barn or the way over the top carry your friend to safety part. Although, now that I think about it, that unskippable cutscene at the beginning, yeah, how about we get rid of that?
Basic, and they're all on the boat with me. Everybody's
easy shot. Tempting. Oh, how fast? The butcher gets us to Hedia.
Or the gas attack goes off.
Well, if that happens, then we're all fucked. Let's gear up. Get evil. Clock's ticking. This way.
Another controversial level. It's a torture scene. Barely. But honestly, I'm tired of talking about controversies in Call of Duty. Let's talk about the level itself. Old Comrades is set in St. Petersburg, where you need to chase down the Butcher, a Borussia Dortmund fan who just so happens to be an international terrorist. And let me just say that the city looks great. All the streets and interiors are fully detailed, and the sunny weather gives it all a vibrant look. Because you're always running around, it's hard to take a moment and observe the scenario. But it's there. And the whole context here is fun. It feels like a spy movie.
It's hard to run with concussion, no? Who are you?
Ambush is divided into two parts, the first being, well, the ambush, and the second being an attack on a Nazi camp. Have I told you guys how much I like ambushes? No? They're just so fun. To decimate an entire platoon in seconds just gives you a rush of adrenaline. But anyway, the ambush is over really quick and the second part begins, where you need to sneak through the German camp until you get to an elevated position to support the main assault. Let me tell you, the actual stealth mechanics are definitely not the main selling point of this game. They aren't worse than the ones in Battlefield 5, but let's just say I'm glad they don't fail your game if you're detected. They also give you an optional objective, which as far as I was able to tell doesn't change anything. Having said all that, I enjoyed the level. The ambush, the attack, the chase, they're all enticing.
You disobeyed a direct order. Then I guess you better court-martial me. Desertion is a capital offense. So maybe I should just do us all a favor and finish the job.
Steel yourselves, men, for the final push to victory. Today we crush what remains of their fascist Reich. As heroes, we will return to Russia's embrace.
Downfall. The conclusion to World War. The perfect ending to the game. I mean, they couldn't really go wrong with this one. The story was already written for them. And Infinity Ward had already done the same exact mission in the original COD. In a much more simplistic way, of course. But I'm glad they improved on that, making the event a lot more dramatic and gritty. and letting you really feel the exhaustion of the Germans. The Reichstag itself also helps to sell the level. The close quarters combat feels like a breath of fresh air compared to the more open-ended scenarios of previous missions. And the whole thing is just really unforgettable. From blowing the Nazi eagle to planting the Soviet flag above Berlin, it's awesome.
As long as you live, the heart of this army can never be broken.
Things will change, my friend. As heroes, we will return to Russia's embrace.
In position. Let's take them out together. On your go.
Fun fact, this was the first level in the series that the breach mechanic was ever used, and I'm so glad for that, because despite how repetitive it may have become over the years, it's just so satisfying. But anyway, the level is great. It's not the best level that takes place in an oil rig in the series in my opinion, but you'll only figure out why later down the line. The intro to the level is phenomenal, and the shootout in the smoke is a clever way to change the gunfight format.
Hold up. They've already taken prisoners. They're moving fast. We need to be faster. Keep it tight, lads. Use the boats for cover.
Eye of the Storm is the build-up to Blood Brothers. A really awesome level that we'll see down the line. So it's kinda like all Lit Up, but this one is in Prague. Because it's in the middle of the night, you can't really appreciate the scenario. But again, it's there. And the plot here is really interesting. The citizens of Prague, led by Kamarov of all people, are waging a war against the occupying Russian forces. And because of that, we get some really hard-hitting moments like a walk through one of their strongholds or a scene of them getting destroyed by tanks. But we also get some jaw-dropping scenes like this one.
Wait. Nice timing, old man. For once that made we were 4 men and they've got dozens. Don't worry, I'll pull some friends.
Alcatala search party.
And here, protect you.
They're still looking.
We're not too late then. Let's get Hadir before he starts a third world war in Barkov's basement. Stay close.
Going Dark is a heavily stealth-based level, where night vision and hiding in shadows takes center stage, and it's an interesting level because of that. But also due to its more open-ended design, where you can choose which objective you want to tackle first and how you want to approach it, which is great. And when I say that hiding in shadows takes center stage, I mean that they've added a new mechanic where you can see how visible you are for the enemies. So like, if you're standing in the dark, you're practically invisible. But if you stand near fire or a lamp, they'll spot you. So what you need to do is strip from fires, obviously, but also kill all the lights you find. It's a nice little gimmick that makes the level stand out. Beyond that, you have to find Hadir and then escape from a chopper. Cool. And the map is well designed too. Even though you only see everything neither green or pitch black, you can still appreciate their interior design. Especially in Barkov's state, where if you don't want to be blinded by those awful lamps, you have to remove your night vision goggles, which lets you see everything in a more natural light.
Four, 5, 1.
Go.
Gentlemen, what do we know?
Nothing solid. Special branch is sweeping up known persons of interest, but we advise tasking SAS to investigate Tier 1 threats.
Patch me through to Hereford.
Ma'am, I understand we have unknown hostiles expecting a package.
MI5 has identified several possible points of entry. Be advised, the nature of the cargo is currently unknown.
Roger. My team is making ready. We'll be on plot within the hour. Don't worry, ma'am. Whatever they're up to, we'll put a stop to it.
I'm not gonna ask if any of my subscribers are from England, because my channel currently has 2 subscribers. One of them is me, the other is also myself, so I'm pretty sure none of them are British. But in the case this channel ever grows an audience, Here goes a shout out to all my English viewers. Because now we're talking London. Mind the Gap is a sweet level. It brings back old characters like Warcraft and Macmillan, and it has an awesome chase through the London subways. This level could only get better if Doctor Who showed up. And the fact that the train crashes conveniently under Westminster just so we could get a panoramic shot of the Big Ben is incredible.
The truck will be here any second!
Hey, isn't this danger close for the task force? This is when to shut your care about danger close.
I think I have played team players so many times now that I can do it with a blindfold. I've memorized every enemy spawn location and how many there are in each section, just from playing over and over, and it never gets old. It lasts just the right amount of time, and you're never in one spot for too long. Linearity here works perfect, because even though you go through a very scripted sequence of events, they all vary in location and momentum. The Humvee ride goes from ominous to frenetic in half a second, and the shootout inside the school has just the right amount of enemies. It's just an awesome level, and I was so glad when they added an extra scene in the remastered that explains why you begin the mission lying down on the floor.
Get up, Private Allen! Rangers lead the way! Move!
You haven't beaten me, Elias. You just made my job a hell of a lot easier.
The Hunted is a heavily stealth-based level where you have to crawl through a forest while avoiding Federation soldiers. The setting here is well done. The forest itself feels like a very vivid place with various types of plants and vegetation, and I like how the level lets you choose between going stealth or loud. The level is really just about being a ghost, hiding in waterfalls and vegetation, and taking down enemies without alerting anyone. It's a cool premise.
You guys hear that? He's headed this way! Stukas, inbound! Near them! Clear the tanks!
It's hard to describe Operation Cobra because the level is actually a lot of things. And in it, a lot of things happen to you rather than you acting upon anything. It begins with a gentle ride atop a tank, then you get attacked by Stukas and you have to take him down, then you have to take an enemy position, and then you have to drive through the French countryside to aid another platoon. It's crazy, but it's a fun level, that although it can be a little hard to understand what's going on at times, is still engaging.
Holographic canopy. Target building up ahead.
Biolab is a mission in advanced warfare where you have to destroy a virus-producing factory in Bulgaria, and it serves as a display of lots of futuristic tech, like the cloaking camo that you have to use in the beginning to avoid enemy patrols, which is a nice one-off mechanic. And also the hover tank that you use at the end to escape the facility and to destroy tanks, choppers, and infantry. It's bonkers.
Got it! Cobra incoming! Fire to the right! Fire again!
Black Tuesday takes place at the heart of New York and at the heart of American capitalism, Wall Street. And the level is really memorable because of that. fighting in a run-down version of Manhattan is awesome. And even though most of the level is a shooting gallery, fighting in the streets and inside the stock exchange makes it a lot more interesting. And the last moments of the mission are just perfect. First you get the Predator missile to obliterate enemy soldiers, and then you hop on a Black Hawk and fight off Russian attack choppers in the most epic way possible.
Look out! We're hit! Police, freeze! Get your hands up now! Get down on the ground! Right now! Not gonna tell you again! Suspect.
Piccadilly is definitely one of the shortest levels in the franchise, but it is by no means bad. The conflict here feels real. The stakes feel higher than ever, with every second you waste meaning the death of another civilian. And it's great that in this instance, you actually have a reason to gun down dozens of terrorists, when most of the time you're just killing random unnamed soldiers. Ashes to Ashes is also one of the shortest levels in the franchise. But the idea of the level alone sells it to me. A level where you kill practically all the main characters in the game. It's unheard of. And they really let you see every single character die.
Mr. President, now is not the time to appease our enemies.
We destroy our enemies when we make friends with them. If we cannot end our differences, at least...
That's gunfire!
Hijackers are taking the plane! The gun is being released!
Apart from a shootout in zero gravity, Turbulence doesn't really stand out when it comes to gameplay. However, when it comes to the context that the level takes place in, it's more like Mile High Club on steroids. For half of its runtime, the level takes place in the Russian version of Air Force One, and the plane is bigger and better than the one in Mile High Club. And like I said, besides shooting while floating in the air, there isn't much to it in terms of shooting. But instead of a single breach in the hull, the entire thing breaks in half when we get this awesome set piece. After the plane crashes, you have to fight a few Russian forces and secure the Russian president, until the dramatic plot where it is revealed that it was Makarov all along. Achilles' Veil is a creative level in Black Ops 2, where you start undercover inside Menendez's inner circle and participate in his ceremony, until it gets interrupted by the Yemeni forces. And what's interesting here is that because you are undercover, you have to fight the Yemeni soldiers, which makes you feel bad about yourself because they're innocent. And so I usually just print this part of the mission to the checkpoint. In fact, this level just makes you feel bad in general, especially due to the lose-lose situation the level puts you in, when you have to choose between killing Harper or revealing your disguise, which sucks both ways. But I commend the devs for forcing you to make that decision. It's a nice storytelling device that engages you in the narrative and allows the story to branch out in multiple paths. And speaking of multiple paths, when I was recording this, I found out that there is a different route you can take in the map to skip part of the battle. And it's not even hidden, I simply had never walked to the right. And also, speaking of the map, I like it. The streets of Yemen are very colorful and detailed, and they remind me of the old COD levels that took place in Libya or Tunisia. And the mountainous landscapes and ancient architecture also make the level stand out.
Captain Price. Ад ждет тебя.
Price, get out of there!
Yuri, my friend, you never should have come here.
Get out now!
Okay, so this is the level I was talking about that comes after Eye of the Storm. And it's the saddest level in the CAR franchise, apart from Loose Ends of course. Because Soap dies, and it hits you hard. Well, at least it hit me hard. Because the moment is really dramatic, being the only time you can see Price cry, let alone show any form of emotion. He even gives back his old M1911. And also during that scene, Soap reveals that Yuri had previously worked with Makarov. So it's a lot to unpack. So much so, that after that, we got lots of flashback scenes of classic moments in Modern Warfare 1 and 2 from Yuri's perspective. So as you can see, this is a massive level story-wise. And when it comes to the gameplay, well, after your attempt to assassinate Makarov goes south, you and Price alone have to carry Soap to safety in the middle of a war zone. And just like that, Price turns into Chuck Norris and all semblance of reality is thrown out the window, with not a single Russian soldier managing to get a shot on you.
All we got out of Rojas is that the only guy Makarov hates worse than Americans is locked up in a gulag.
That's all we got. If this con's the bait to catch that psychopath, let's hang him from a tree.
Just like Team Player, I can play this one with a blindfold on, just from playing so many times. Because the level is awesome. Again, it takes place in Brazil, so I'm very fond of it. But also because it's just non-stop frenetic action. It practically spawns you in the middle of the fight, and it barely gives you a break. Also, the unstructured architecture of the favela means that there is always guys firing at you left and right, and the daring escape at the end just never gets old.
Jump for it! Nikolai, we got him! Get us out of here! Way to do it, my friend! Let's get us to the summer.
Up and running today!
I'm trying!
Your GCM must be stuck!
They're closing in!
There! I'm stuck!
All units are active. Weapon systems online.
Grenade! Move!
Fallen Angel takes place in Pakistan and mixes moments of stealth with action gameplay. And I think it merges those two pretty well, having the stealth moments that are very scripted while at the same time very engaging, and having the action moments with the claws that tear down rows of enemies. And the coolest part about this level is the ending, when they let you choose between controlling the drone or the SAC-Ts, both being cool options.
Of course. Not only am I aware of the infiltration, I engineered it.
God damn! He's onto a section! Look out! Grenade!
Welcome to Detroit! 2.5 million people live in camps just like this one. No fucking holiday, but they got food, water, security, all courtesy of Atlas. Now, the KVA have the balls to move in next door. Fuck me.
Are jokes hating on Detroit still funny in 2021? Well, anyway, this mission takes place in a run-down version of the city, inside an abandoned school and later an abandoned hospital, where you have to capture Pierre Denoir, one of the game's bad guys. This level has some unique moments like the hoverbike chase or the moment where you have to use an ambulance as cover. The setting itself is nothing we haven't seen before in other games, with the only differential being the Atlas camp for refugees, and the level is varied enough that it is a good time in the end.
Krauts are down on our fighters.
Trust me, Aiello. Get out there and hit those guns.
Yes, Sergeant.
Daniel Stiles, you provide overwatch from the tower with me.
Just glad it's gonna be you up there. No pressure. Don't worry, I've got your back. You better.
Stronghold is a nice level in COD World War II where you have to capture a church to support another platoon in taking down AA guns. And I like these support missions. I think they are a nice little change of pace from the normal run and gun structure. And the moment when the tower collapses is an incredible set piece. Fractured Jaw is an awesome and completely fantasized version of the Vietnam War, where everything is great and people die, but nobody really cares because it seems like they're all having fun. Of course, that later you find out that this was all planned in Bell's head and none of it is real, which also explains kind of the weird structure of the level, but the mission is nice. There's lots of different set pieces that make it so you're always doing something different, and it also has a chopper section that comes out of nowhere and that never happens in the game again. But that's part of the course in Call of Duty.
Come on, Bells, stay on them. You can do that.
Hudson, you see the boys?
They have to transmit from the surface. That's why we could never find the broadcast source. The structure below us. It's more than a transmitter.
It's a supply station of the Soviet submarine fleet. Part of Dragovich's plan for invasion, once Nova 6 was released.
Redemption is the bombastic ending to Black Ops 1, where you assault the Rusalka to stop sleeper agents from releasing the Nova 6 gas in American soil, and also to kill Dragovich. The level's opening is awesome, with you controlling an attack helicopter and decimating enemy resistance in the ship. Although after you land, the level dissolves into another shooting gallery inside narrow metal corridors and generic wider spaces. Even if it takes place hundreds of meters underwater, it's still the same. But the mission has other pros like killing Dragovich and that fantastic closing shot.
Mason! It is over. We won.
For now.
Traffic takes place in Lagos, Nigeria, where I have to secure the country's prime minister and rescue another hostage from the hands of the KVA, the bad guys from Advanced Warfare. It's a level that doesn't take itself too seriously, feeling rather comic at times, especially when roadkill happens. It works in the story mode to paint the Atlas operatives in this ultra soldier image, and it manages to be really entertaining, simply by embracing the craziness that these campaigns are known for. And the urban setting of Lagos really distinguishes the level.
Nigerian army, get down, out of the way. RP!
Nikolai, we're just outside the village.
Copy. I'll pick you up in 1 hour.
The setting and context here is nothing we haven't seen before countless other times in different games. You're fighting another African paramilitary group in a random African country, in this case Sierra Leone. But this execution is just great, to the point where it makes the mission really good. The early stealth section is nothing to write home about, but when the action picks up, it's awesome. From the technical to the more, to the hyenas even, it's all really fun. Rising Threat is without a doubt the most beautiful level in the franchise. I mean, just look at it. And beyond that, The level is a great introduction to Infinite Warfare, showing lots of absurd guns and equipment, and introducing us to the game's plot and villain. It's a shame that this is one of the few moments in the game that you actually interact with Kit Harington, because the scene is great, and the level is also great, lasting just the right amount of time and having some really crazy scenes. Whiskey Hotel is also one of the shortest levels in the franchise, clocking in just under 5 minutes. But boy is it epic. A final, desperate push to retake the White House from the Russians. And it's all set in the most cinematic way possible, starting with an establishing shot that places the main building in dead center of the frame and illuminates it perfectly, while also showing the once carefully trimmed gardens of the house, now completely devastated by warfare. And once you reach the West Wing, the stakes get higher and you need to reach the roof before they bomb the hell out of you. And once you do reach the roof, it is also freaking epic.
So, when are we going to Moscow? Not soon enough, man. I know we're gonna burn it down when we get there.
When the time is right, Corbin. When the time is right.
Position.
Opening! Contact coming out of the hatch!
Hunter Killer is also an epic level of bombastic set pieces ripped straight from an action movie. The mission begins underwater with you having to attack a submarine, and it plays in a way that probably inspired the underwater level in COD Ghosts. After you force the submarine to emerge from the water, you board it, kill everyone inside, and use its missiles to destroy the rest of the Russian fleet, which results in a crazy Zodiac escape through the exploding ships. It's perfect.
Cousins, we fight to free Urzikstan and take back our country. For Urzikstan!
Proxy War is a simple mission where you have to capture a Russian airbase in Uzbekistan. And I like it because it's pretty straightforward, and does not take itself too seriously. It starts as the attack commences and it ends when you finally capture it. There isn't much room for convoluted plots or political commentary. And although it's only a shooting gallery, it has some fun elements that make it stand out, like the drones and the helicopter support.
Thank you. We make a good team.
Yes, we've bought time. But Barker will retaliate.
So will we.
Judgment Day is a sweet ending to Black Ops 2. The opening of the level is epic, and the whole level has lots of cool elements, like being able to call kinetic airstrikes or using those mini tanks. And story-wise, the moment of Menendez in the big screen is perfect to define the character. And later, when you get to choose whether he lives or dies, is also great.
Lieutenant, tell them what we're all about.
No mission too difficult, no sacrifice too great. Duty first.
I can't hear you.
No mission too difficult, no sacrifice too great. Duty first.
That's right. Now get ready to move out.
Duty first. Back to the old meat grinder. Amen, brother.
Death Factory is one of 2 missions in COD World War II that take place in the Hurtgen Forest. And it has lots of interesting moments. At first it sets up the plot and setting, letting you explore your camp and looking over the forest to the position that you have to capture. And let me just say for a second that having to carry the mass kit inside a camp just brings back so many memories of the time I did in the army, and we had to eat on these same metal lunchboxes. Later on you have to hold a bridge inside the forest, and it's really intense because the Germans simply don't stop. And after that you run from an artillery strike and get separated from your platoon, until you find Turner. And what's awesome here is to use the flamethrower and to watch the Nazis burn. Especially that goddamn sniper.
My gut tells me something's off. If I made decisions based on your gut, Private, we'd still be on the boat at Normandy.
Exactly.
Convoy's coming through, and it's up to us to make sure it gets to the Rhine. Now all we gotta do is survive the cold. And Pearson.
Battle of the Bulge feels like a spiritual remake of another level from Call of Duty United Offensive, which is very similar to this one, with both being about, well, the Battle of the Bulge, and with the map being practically the same, and that level was one of the best in that game. So it's no surprise that this is one of the best in COD World War II. I love these hold the line style levels. They really heat up the stakes and break from the usual format. Of course, sometimes even holding the line can get really boring, but here it's fleshed out to the point where it's really good. First, just like in Death Factory, they build up to the attack, showing the trenches in a moment of calm, so when the Germans do begin their assault, it feels more eventful. There's a dogfight section in the middle of the level, which feels a little out of place, but it helps to distinguish the mission. And again, the final stand is really cool. It is certainly a lot more scripted than the original mission though.
Here they come! Here they come, my brothers! Fight, my brothers!
I like how Pyrrhic victory takes place in a historical conflict that we've rarely seen in media, if at all, the Angolan Civil War. Of course it's heavily fantasized, but it's nice that we get to fight alongside Jonas Savimbi. And the level is wild. First you fight against an MPLA battalion in the savannas, then you rescue Woods in the Cubango River, then you have to crawl through the woods and witness child soldiers, and then you meet Menendez for the first time.
Los americanos no saben nada sobre la lealtad. Quizás nosotros deberíamos demostrar.
You son of a bitch!
All U.S. forces in Paris are engaged. Triage the civilians and move your team upwind of the plume.
This area is still dirty from the chemical attack. Keep your masks on. Truck, run the deck.
Bag and Drag is the first of 2 levels that take place in Paris in Modern Warfare 3, where you have to capture Volk. This level is mostly a shooting gallery until its midway point, but it's a fun shooting gallery. Fighting on the colorful streets of Paris gives it a new edge, especially because you fight alongside a GIGN and can call in airstrikes, even if only for a brief moment. And in the second half, you get to explore the catacombs, and then get into an awesome car chase to catch Volk, which is just amazing.
You know, if Russia was in Afghanistan, they'd be looking at China next.
No one likes the Russians, huh?
You know me. I don't like anyone. You might want to get your head down.
Take it easy, Sal!
Also nice that we get to witness the Soviet war on Afghanistan here. The only other game that portrayed that war was Rambo the video game. And this level is really unlike anything else we have seen before. It's the only level in the franchise where you can ride a horse, and it all takes place in this open area that you can more or less explore, which is far from the linear paths we're accustomed to. And the whole execution of the mission is very cartoonish. It's full of wacky explosions and set pieces just for spectacle. Mason can effortlessly handle a 30-pound Stinger launcher with one hand while elegantly riding a horse with another. And then Kravchenko shows up out of nowhere in a massive tank just so you could have this scene.
What's their status?
They have Volk in custody, but their OPSEC's been compromised.
In English, General, please.
They're gonna have to shoot their way to the extraction point.
General, I want this man Volk alive. I don't care what it takes. You bring those men home in one piece.
Bag and Drag is already good, but Iron Lady manages to be even better. It's actually Death from Above on steroids, being a lot more fast-paced and intertwining between moments where you control the plane and others where you control Frost. And it all works really well. It feels like a really fluid level that never gets boring, especially because instead of the normal black and white, this time the camera is fully colored. And the ending where you make a last stand in front of the Eiffel Tower just to watch it collapse is perfectly epic. Cordas D is the culmination of everything that the Call of Duty campaigns are known for: over the top, exaggerated, non-stop action, and highly scripted, unbelievable set pieces. You start off in a VTOL that gets shot down, then you get into a truck which also crashes, then you get onto another truck and shoot a bunch of drones, and then that truck also gets destroyed, then you rappel from a highway and get into another truck which also gets destroyed, and then when you wake up you get access to drones that help you destroy claws that are killing everybody on the street, and then the fighter pilot who was escorting you gets shot, and a fucking skyscraper gets dropped in your head, which seems to be only a minor inconvenience because after that everyone is fine. But then you take control of the fighter jet and escort a convoy through downtown LA and fight off drones again, until your jet gets destroyed and you hit your head on another skyscraper at 60 miles an hour and safely land on the streets. All that, might I add, while fighting hundreds of mercs and protecting the President of the United States. Do I need to say anything more?
Mason? You are one crazy bastard, you know that, right?
Visual on the convoy. Get us alongside him.
Operation Black Flag is also a long mission from Infinite Warfare, divided into multiple subchapters. The first involves an on-foot chase through Zurich, and it's fun. The Zurich setting is really interesting, having some cool environments to go through, and the gameplay is fun. The second part involves an attack from the SDF in the city, and you having to capture the enemy carrier and kill Kit Harington. And the level is cool, having lots of big set pieces and crazy moments. And the way you kill the main villain is just perfect. Crash is a nice package. The Antarctic setting is amazing, and the set pieces are a lot of fun. The opening is really cool, with you hijacking a plane mid-air, and then fighting inside the glaciers is just very unique.
Infantry! Cargo is secure!
Solid copy, Sentinel. Nice work out there.
We picked up a guest along the way.
Alex, check this out. 338 Lapua, armor piercing at 600 meters. I put it together myself. Please, use it.
Solid heater.
Protect her with your life. She will do the same for you.
Although the intro to this level is surrounded by controversy over altering history, it's actually very fun. It feels somewhat like Comrade Sniper in COD 2, where you have to hold a position with a sniper rifle, and if you fail to take down your targets, they start to overrun you, which really heightens the tension and makes the level a lot more engaging. It can be a little frustrating that, unlike Comrade Sniper, it doesn't really matter how well you do, because the enemies instantly spawn, and you have to use the gas no matter what. But I still enjoy it a lot.
Too much radiation. We'll have to go around. Follow me and keep low.
Okay, let me explain. I love both All Geared Up and One Shot One Kill. I always find myself replaying them because they're just a perfect short story that you can play in one sitting. And both levels are gaming history bookmarks, no argument there. But because we're ranking individual levels, I thought it would be unfair to rank them as only one, which would definitely put them in the top 10s. And as a separate level, All Geared Up is great, but it is not as good as other missions that can stand on their own.
Look at this place. 50,000 people used to live in the city. Now it's a ghost town. Never seen anything like it.
SOG stands out by presenting this massive scale battle featuring this massive air base and hundreds of Vietnamese and American soldiers, and also by representing a historical event, the Tet Offensive. And there's lots of cool things that make the level a blast. It begins straight with Fortunate Son blasting on the radio and the shot of Woods coming down on a Huey chopper, which really plays on the classic Hollywood vision of the war. And then the attack begins in a bombastic set piece, and after that we get to see hordes of VC coming from the hills into the trenches, and that is just an incredible shot. Overall, the level is awesome, because it lets you play with lots of different guns and gives you lots of crazy moments.
That's our man. Take him out.
Nowhere Left to Run got me really freaking hyped when I saw the trailer for Black Ops Cold War. It's pure cinematic fun. Fighting on the 1980s Amsterdam is sweet, and the environments you can explore are all themed really well. And the airfield section is just balls to the walls action. It's a mission that serves amazingly at presenting the game, and at getting you to want more.
All is good down here. Possible malfunction at your end? Fire now!
Firing.
Red system engaging target. Firing.
Shit! Get out!
This mission is one of the best in the Black Ops 3 campaign, simply because it represents what the story should have been about, rather than what it was. It's a level about going undercover and meddling with international political plots and events, like Black Ops agents usually do, instead of the AI, psychological, convoluted schlock that we got. This level is a taste of the awesome campaign that we could have gotten, that we never did. And the level itself is really awesome. It's a big show off of cyber soldiers, droids, and big explosions.
It's compromised. No, fuck! Get to the APC! Get out of there! Taylor, my team's still at Exfil. More NRC grunts moving in. Captain, retribution is losing altitude. Cannot divert. Affirm, Captain. You're veering to our path. Collision imminent. Ethan, pull up now! I
Operation Bloodstorm is the last level in Infinite Warfare and is also the longest. It's also a level where almost every main character dies. Spoilers, by the way. The story feels a little forced to have happened the way it did, which was also a problem of Operation Black Flag that I didn't mention, but it's easy to overlook that, especially because the mission has lots of emotion and impactful moments that are kinda sweet. Heat is just awesome. It starts with you and the rest of the SAS completely destroying a Russian platoon caught off guard, then you use a minigun to bring down several transport helicopters, then you blow up more Russian soldiers with C4, then you use a javelin to destroy enemy tanks, and then you are able to call in airstrikes. And the bright color daylight setting makes the level stand out a lot more from other levels in COD 4, which are either at night or just muted in color.
Nikolai, come in. Do you have our location?
Da, inbound price. But I am not the only one. You've got Shepard's men on one side, Makarov's on the other.
We'll have to take them all out then.
Or let them take each other out. Either way, I'll see you on the other side, my friend.
Just like SOG, this one stands out for featuring a massive conflict, except that here, you're fighting against all sides. The premise for the chapter is phenomenal, and it's part of a big turning point in the game's story. It also helps that it's full of cool moments like picking apart enemies from each faction one by one from a distance while they fight one another, or when your driver gets killed and you have to drive the jeep into a moving plane. It's just perfect. Wolverines differentiates itself from other levels, because it somewhat feels more like a sandbox than a linear level. It still has scripted moments, but it all takes place in this one area that you're free to move around, and it lets you use all sorts of tools to take down waves of enemies in helicopters, from Predator missiles and stingers to snipers with thermal scopes and sentry guns that you can place wherever you so please. And it also gave us Burger Town.
The convoy is just to the south of Burger Town. Get your ass over here. Move!
6 and 8 o'clock.
Payback has some really memorable moments in the story, including Bowman and Woods dying. But the main selling point of the mission is the chopper section, where you destroy enemy infrastructure and vehicles, as well as fight other choppers. It's alright, and the rest of the level is just other shooting galleries.
This is it. Only way we survive this is by keeping our heads. Wait for an opportunity.
Everyone off the truck, now! Come on, get him off the truck. That's all of them. 10 coming open.
Capture is interesting for a couple of reasons. First, because it takes place in this massive prison that you have to escape from, which is really cool. Second, because at the end, you can use an AST to tear down dozens of enemy personnel and vehicles, which is awesome. And third, and also why most people remember this level, because at one point your arm gets broken and you can no longer reload or aim with guns, so you have to constantly switch between weapons on the floor, which is really unique. I like Struck Down because it's a fun level that gets straight to the point. You tag the trucks and within under a minute you're blasting through the stadium. And the very fact that we're playing on a baseball stadium is fascinating, as well as seeing the stands, the food court, the shops and the memorabilia collection. Lastly, Riley and the remote sniper are awesome additions.
Taylor's team were responding to a priority alert signal. It originated from nearly a mile below the old coalescence facility. I've pulled every piece of intel and schematic available. Whatever's down there isn't on any map.
Alright, the last level on the list from Black Ops 3. A very underwhelming campaign, even for COD standards. But Hypocenter is neat. It's a very weird level compared to most we have seen so far. Mostly because it's here that the game's story starts to really develop. In Hypocenter, you explore this massive research facility that extends hundreds of meters underground, until you discover some secret human experiments made by the CIA. And then you find out that your former partner, Diaz, is hooked to the facility's main server and is controlling all of the robots. And what I like about the level is how it builds the mystery of what's behind the facility and the atmosphere of something really creepy lurking around. And I especially love when the robots start to emerge from the water and start attacking you like a bunch of zombies. It's really bizarre.
Charges are set and everyone's home. Let's introduce ourselves. On you. Drop him. Take him out. We're clear. Let's move.
This is the other level I mentioned in the series that takes place in an oil rig. And this one's cooler because you blow up the damn thing. Not only because of that, but also because the set pieces are awesome. The opening is brilliant and the escape at the end is insane. But besides that, there isn't much to say. It's just a lot of explosions with the Aurora Borealis in the background. It's great. Holy shit! I forgot to include End of the Line in the freaking list. Fuck it. Let me just shove it here real quick and nobody's gonna notice. End of the Line is alright. It's a pretty by the books level. You infiltrate a building, get some intel and leave. Not much else. Return to Sender is a very engaging, action-packed level that takes place in Somalia. It's engaging because its shooting galleries are never overly long and it gives you elements that break the format, such as Nikolai's gun run or the low visibility during the sandstorm. And it's awesome that we get a sandstorm moment, because the way the storm darkens everything just adds an extra touch to it. Persona non grata is mostly a shooting gallery, but it's a really fun one. The mountainous, colorful landscapes of India makes the scenario stand out a lot, and fighting as the underdog is always engaging, especially against hundreds of enemy soldiers and helicopters. But what really makes this level flourish is the UGV, which is just so satisfying to use and to mow down dozens of enemies.
Lock a place down, I'll give them that.
From the lighting and color design to the outfits the characters wear and the neatly built scenario, Brick in the Wall is incredible in terms of presentation. Environments like the cafe and the apartment all feel lived in and real, and this noir spy thriller aesthetic that the level goes for really sells the mission. The stealth moments are kinda dull but still entertaining. Likewise, the action sequence wasn't bad.
The healthy human mind doesn't wake up in the morning thinking this is its last day on Earth. But I think that's a luxury, not a curse. To know you're close to the end is a kind of freedom. Good time to take inventory. Outgunned, outnumbered, out of our minds on a suicide mission. But the sand and rocks here, stained with thousands of years of warfare, they will remember us for this. Because out of all our vast array of nightmares, this is the one we choose for ourselves. We go forward like a breath exhaled from the earth, with vigor in our hearts and one goal in sight. We will kill him.
Just Like Old Times brings a lot of old memories from when I used to play Modern Warfare non-stop. And the level is really sweet. You begin on a stealth section with one of the most classic snipers in the entire franchise, then you rappel down a cliff and take down a couple of guards in the best way possible. After that, you sneak through a cave system until you're ambushed by the enemy and have to fight them in a boiler room, only seeing their laser sights. And just like that, the mission is full of little fun encounters like the one of the riot shields or the one of the thermal sights. And it's also really fun to cheat the NPC spawn locations.
Understood. Head for the tunnel. Protect us up.
What am I up against?
The place is a fortress. Only one way in or out. Unless you've learned to fly. Security office on the far side of the compound, and a command center north of that. Both were heavily guarded. If Makarov's there, he'll be in that control room. What's this you're sending me?
Equipment list.
That's a lot of hardware, John. What you plan on doing?
What you taught me to do. Kill them all.
Stronghold feels very much like a James Bond-esque mission, with you elegantly parachuting your way in and out of the level and stealthily maneuvering through the enemy compound. And again, the level is full of different unique encounters that give it a lot of flow, like the night vision encounter or the courtyard fight, where you can choose which route to take and choose if you want to take down enemies with a sniper or face them head on with an SMG. It's a solid level.
I'll go first. Take it easy, Mason. I'll stabilize this end. Easy.
Alright, now we're getting to the really good stuff. From this point on, all of the missions in the list are absolutely great, and if you wanted to make a case that any of them should be number 1, I probably wouldn't disagree, because they're all just a blast to play. And talking about Crash Site, this is one crazy and confusing mission, but it's also amazing. The first half is this wild ride through a river straight out of Apocalypse Now. It even includes the song Sympathy for the Devil from the Rolling Stones. It's completely bonkers. But then, you encounter a heavier enemy ship and the mood completely changes when a member of your crew dies. And there is a heavy shift in tone after that, going for a quiet, more somber atmosphere. But even then, it's still good. Especially when you have to hold out inside the crashed plane.
Dragovich, Kravchenko. It's been too long, Mason. We must make up for lost time.
How many casualties?
We executed the mission.
How many?
Our instructions were to take this hill.
You should have waited for us.
There wasn't time.
What about our...
We had orders!
The hell with our goddamn orders!
Do you think I wanted any of this? We are cogs in the machine, Joseph. We start going our own way, the whole thing breaks down. When did you forget that?
These are men! Our men! When did you forget?
Hill 493 is the second level in World War II that takes place in the Hurricane Forest, and is the end of the second act in the game. It distinguishes itself by being this more dramatic mission, showing the emotional strain the war has put on the other man. But even though the level is supposed to be dramatic, it's still fun to burn Nazis. And this has to be one of the most lifelike cutscenes I've seen in the video game, while also just being really touching. This level is just bonkers. It's beautiful and I love it. You have to fight in a town that's being brutally flooded by a breached dam. And what they did was beyond anything any action movie could do. And it was awesome. I have to admit that it's probably one of the most stupid setups for a level in the franchise, but it plays really well, has some incredible set pieces, and is an absolutely unforgettable experience.
Stay sharp, Mason. They're out there.
Victor Charlie takes place in a Vietnamese jungle and it's an awesome level. I just love everything about it. For example, the opening gets you hyped up, the silent sneak through the huts is atmospheric, the village attack is fun, and the tunnel exploration is tense and unique. Traversing the darkness of the red tunnels is just a harrowing experience, and using the python to tear away the enemy's limbs is also super exciting.
Lean forward, Luna. Supposed to be on your honeymoon.
Keep your eyes on Hades, not me.
The last and the best from Advanced Warfare. I can talk about all the set pieces, or about the drone section, or even about the sniper encounter, which are all great, but we all know that what really sells Manhunt is the setting. The coastal paradise of Santorini, Greece is simply the perfect scenario for, well, for anything really. The place is gorgeous. Furthermore, the map is extremely well designed, with modern and vintage architecture that mixes together seamlessly. It is truly a sight for sore eyes, and mixed with some fun and engaging gameplay, it becomes an amazing level.
Maintain current heading, all looks good.
Copy that. Icarus 9 beginning descent.
Comms are open, Fareed. We're all listening.
Okay. The ID bands identify you as Union inspectors. You'll have access to most areas except the one you actually want.
Karma is another fantastic level made unforgettable due to its setting. The fictional futuristic private city of Colossus is simply awe-inspiring, and makes for some very interesting environments like the nightclub and the mall. The gameplay itself is also really fun, having lots of cool moments like using the spider Ziggy or the slow-mo shootout at the dance floor. And the way you can either accomplish or fail your objective at the end, which has lasting consequences in the game's story, makes the mission really unique.
So, without your expertise, Menendez's plans for Solarium will have hit a roadblock.
It may slow his progress, but it won't stop him. He'll get what he wants. Believe me.
Guns, guns, guns. 2221, gun effect on target. All snipers, this is McTavish. Stand by to engage.
What do I even have to say about the Gulag? Anyone that knows anything about COD knows about this level, and there's a reason for that. It's a masterpiece. The opening alone is already epic, but then you enter the prison and you get encounters like the armory, the night vision section, and even the scene ripped straight out from The Rock. The movie, not the actor. And we also get that unforgettable plot reveal that Prisoner 627 is actually Bryce. It's just incredible.
Nothing to gain by talking to you.
Think about what you have to lose.
We can do this all day. We got plenty of windows.
Or you can give us what we want and we get...
What I said of Manhunt is also true for Numbers. The claustrophobic, ungovernable, disorienting mass that was the city of Kowloon makes for the perfect location for a COD level. With its narrow corridors and cramped rooms, the mission feels like it was handcrafted to fit this close quarters scenario, giving you mostly shotguns and SMGs, with the exception of the time when they give you a freaking missile launcher. The verticality of the map especially makes it all really unique. It's a far cry from the open green fields of Normandy or even the deserts of the Middle East.
Welcome to Fleet Week!
Black Sky is just a beautiful level. Zurich's landscape is just really pretty to look at, and the mission's strong use of color makes it all even better. Beyond that, it's an epic chapter, and the scale of the level is just absurd. It's jaw-dropping to see behemoths like the friendly carriers get dropped on the riverbed and create massive shockwaves that wreck everything in their path. And when you are in space and watching those gigantic ships crash into one another is amazing. The gameplay is also fun. From fighting in the streets all the way to space, it's just crazy.
You got eyes on this, Reyes?
Affirmative.
We got incoming!
Let's get in there!
Roger that! All stars, engage the next destroyer!
Tonight, everything we've lost, everything we fought for, will mean something. Tonight, we take back our city.
The garrison. Our contact there will supply us with explosives. And when we blow the gates, that'll be your signal to approach.
We're counting on you.
All right, boys. Let's get ready.
Liberation was really unlike anything that had come before in the series. We had never before had an experience where the focus was on moving freely and where the objective was to explore. So when I first played this mission, I was amazed by the fact that you could simply search and get lost in multiple rooms. And the 1940s administration building you explore is very well designed and also populated with plenty of NPCs and conversations to overhear. Likewise, the whole undercover plot is very interesting, and even after this section of the level ends, all of the fighting in the streets of Paris is really entertaining, especially holding the line with snipers and Molotov cocktails. This is definitely the best level in COD World War II.
Finally, something to celebrate, eh, Crowley?
There's no turning back. France has reclaimed Paris.
This ain't exactly over yet. The war's not done.
Oh, come on, Pearson, let them have this.
That's what Turner's for.
It was taken from me. Do you know what that feels like yet? An American torched the warehouse. For insurance money, $11,000. That was the value they placed on her life. She was the reason for me to live. What about you, David? What drives you? Is it me? Einstein once said that the economic anarchy of capitalism is the real source of evil. Your father and his people took Josefina from me. Pues,
Tu papá está muerto. Your father's dead. And his people. Finished.
Odysseus is an epic level, including even a betrayal scene that really takes its time to get your blood boiling. And apart from that, it's an amazing chapter where your aircraft carrier gets attacked and you have to defend it and capture Menendez. Just the interrogation scene alone is super interesting, and even after it ends, the level holds momentum and keeps you engaged in the plot. We also get some awesome visuals, especially on the flight deck.
This is his endgame. He's about to unleash drones on cities across the globe.
For days, I've crept through shadows like a rat. This place, once echoed with conversations of friends and lovers. No longer. Mark my words, comrade. One day things will change. We will take the fight to their land, to their people, to their blood.
Vendetta, the first Russian mission in World War, and also the mission that introduced us to Viktor Reznov, one of the most beloved characters in the series. This level is just perfectly constructed, from the narrative, the scenario, the characters, to the atmosphere, the gameplay, and even the soundtrack, all assembled to create this masterpiece of a chapter. And unlike every other level in the game, Vendetta takes a more scripted approach, which works really well. And with Vendetta, we conclude World War on the list, a campaign that really stands out in tone from the rest. The Defector is a brutal level, with non-stop high-octane action in its entire run, and its red color palette gives it all a striking visual. But the mission is really entertaining and exciting, blowing up enemies with a Spaz 12 and incendiary rounds, as well as calling in air support in the middle of battle is awesome, and so is holding the evac site.
Dragovich. Could be our air support. That ain't ours. Olympus flies!
Operation Burn Water is also a very epic level. The landscapes of Saturn are gorgeous and the combat is awesome. The mission actually starts a little weak on the trailing section, but once you call in reinforcements, the whole thing changes for the better as you get the aid of 2 armored vehicles and a C-12 battle tank, this huge armor robot which you can use to direct attacks. You even get to see 2 of these robots brawl. It's a lot of fun. And then you get this epic shot of the Olympus Mons towering over you and completely stealing the show. Until you board your fighter jet, destroy the fuel station, and gets knocked out by the enemy ship. And the level ends in this beautiful bromance between you and Ethan, the android. It's beautiful.
Let it go, Ethan. I can't, sir. You're my commanding officer, Captain. My mission is you.
Who says?
Oh, I'm hardware, sir. Ultimately expendable.
No. You're my brother, Ethan.
You're talking robot, brother.
Affirmative.
Yes. Well, I am the handsome one, sir.
No doubt.
Your evil has claimed the lives of many good men. No longer.
Killing me will not stop Nova. I do not care about Nova. My name is Viktor Reznov. And I will have my revenge.
Rebirth distinguishes itself by dividing the chapter into 2 different tellings of the same event. On one side we have Mason's perspective as he's the illusion and infiltrating the laboratory alone, which is a more quiet and stealth approach, in direct contrast to the Hudson's perspective, where you invade the base mounted on a BTR and a huge machine gun. but both halves are very cool. The whole level has this beige and brown atmosphere which darkens the environment, and what's really interesting is fighting in the streets filled with Nova 6 gas, using only thermoscopes.
Mason, no!
Más que el niño, risueño niño, Dios del amor. Duerme tranquilo, duerme entre tanto.
Time and Fate is a chapter that, just like Rebirth, shows the same events from two different perspectives, and it works really well. Menendez's half is just an adrenaline-fueled carnage through the farm, the stables, and the mansion. It's wild. And Mason's half is a fun fight against the cartel. It's a fun shooting gallery. And the setting is really colorful and vibrant, which makes it stand out a lot. The whole level has this elegant atmosphere.
No!
Mason.
Woods. Good to see you, Frank.
You too, Alex.
We've been married for 5 years. Go round back. When do we start a family?
She's so fucking pissed.
I thought this was about tomorrow.
It's about everything, Martin. I need something more in my life.
Suffer With Me is great because we get to play as Woods, and also because the level in general is great. It represents the American invasion of Panama, another historical conflict that we rarely see depicted in the media. The mission opens really strong and carries that momentum to the checkpoint and the hangar, both fun shooting galleries, until you reach the motel, which always reminds me of the motel in Left 4 Dead, where you capture and frame Noriega, the guy whose family sued Activision after Black Ops 2 came out. After that, fighting and calling in airstrikes in the streets is also really engaging. But what really makes the level special is the plot, not only for the historical context, but for all that it unveils during the mission, including the death of two main characters and one of the most frustrating moments in the series. It's definitely the best from Black Ops 2.
No! Mason!
Fool.
You bastard! Menendez!
Inside, get in position. You ready to make history?
Operation 40 is just filled with some of the most memorable moments in the franchise. Everyone remembers the moody bar scene followed by the explosive shootout in the streets, and everyone loves shooting Fidel Castro in the face. And again, this level tackles another historical event, the Bay of Pigs invasion of 61. Now that I think about it, I learned way too much history from Call of Duty propaganda. Never mind, the level is great, the guns feel good to use, the soundtrack fits perfectly, and the set pieces are a lot of fun.
See what's out there. They're at final countdown. There's Soyuz 2, scheduled to launch 10 minutes after Soyuz 1. Yeah, comms building.
Executive Order is awesome. The earlier stealth moment just works really well to build up the tension, and we even get to see Wood speak Russian. And when the action begins, you get pumped. Using the crossbow with explosive bolts and then ziplining is just freaking cool. After that, we blow a rocket and go through some fun shooting galleries inside the facility. It's one of the best in the franchise.
No, not yet. Not until I see the body.
Dragovich, did you confirm the kill?
Trust me. That rat bast's a fucking charcoal briquette.
He's right on time. Time to earn the mask.
Federation Day is a beautiful chapter, and also one of the best stealth missions in the franchise. It's beautiful because the city skyline is just gorgeous to look at, with its massive skyscrapers. And it's one of the best stealth levels because it's just full of cool scripted moments that really make you feel like a ghost. From rappelling upside down to fighting with strobes and hiding in the darkness, it's all really neat. And your escape at the end is just badass. WMD is awesome for a multitude of reasons. First, its opening is fantastic with gorgeous shots of the Blackbird, and the way it alternates between you on the plane and huts on the ground is just really sweet. After that, the stealth sections in the mountain are just super cool, with awesome moments like rappelling into the room or being able to choose stealth for loud when approaching the comms building. And then the way you descend from the mountain is epic. At the end, the level kinda just concludes with a few interesting moments. But overall, it's just really amazing and memorable.
Comrade Belikov, we are in grave danger from the capitalists. Our collective, our very way of life is at risk.
The traitor will be caught. And he will pay a high price for his betrayal.
Desperate Measures is a mission very similar to Liberation in World War II, but it expands on that formula and makes it even better. Here we have more rooms to explore, more NPCs to interact with, more side quests, and we can even choose how to tackle our main objective, which adds a whole other level of replayability. The KGB office we get to explore is also just very interesting, with lots of different rooms, all filled with neat decorations, and we even get to talk to Gorbachev and Kravchenko and Zakhaev even. Once the office section of the level ends, it becomes linear again, but it's still a lot of fun. Especially towards the end when you arm yourselves with body armor and LMGs.
Let's go, Bell.
Ready your NPGs. Clean house.
Clockwork is the perfect heist level. Every little moment is executed graciously. The way you and your teammates infiltrate the base is just so clever and interesting to watch. The way you pretend to be checkpoint guards after killing everyone in said checkpoint, and the way you time your attack at the security terminal are both super cool. And remember when I said that I love when there's prior planning to these missions? Well, here they bring all the equipment they use in duffel bags. It's a minor detail, but I love it. And this level is full of these minor details, like when by the end of the level you can see the guys you killed before now being placed in body bags. It's just neat, and the moments where the action picks up are super dope, like standing your ground with sentry guns and mines, or at the very end when you can send vehicles crashing by shooting the ice in front of them.
Mason, every journey begins with a single step.
This is step one! Secure the keys! Now, we take Vorkuta! What is step two?
Vorkuta is just a cinematic masterpiece. It constructs this massive revolution in the Gulag, which is simply an astonishing event to witness, and to be a part of. It's amazing to see how the revolt slowly grows into something uncontrollable. You go from wielding a knife to a minigun, and every step in the way feels meaningful, from destroying machine gun nests to even bringing down a chopper. And your bombastic escape at the end is just badass. But seriously, everyone likes this level. The plot is great, the characters are great, the gameplay is great. Like I said, it's a masterpiece.
Jump, Mason, jump! Go, Mason, go!
Your turn! Come on! Step 8, Reznov! Freedom!
For you, Mason! Not for me!
Reznov! Over here.
I've tapped into their security feed. Makarov's in the atrium on the top floor. This is it. Makarov doesn't leave here alive. Get ready. This is for soap.
This to Dust was simply the best way Infinity War could have come up with to end the Modern Warfare trilogy. This ending leaves no stone unturned and concludes every character arc left in the story. Not only that, but it's the first level that we ever got to play as Captain Price himself. A perfect way to end the game on a high note. Okay, that last sentence is a lie, because we actually played as Price and all gillied up in one shot, one kill in COD 4. Which is something that I should have realized. But still, the point still stands. Playing as Price is a great way to end the story. As well as being the only level that we get to play with Juggernaut suits. The whole way the level plays out is just super satisfying. The zero fucks given approach they take as they make their way to the top of the hotel by walking very calmly and shooting down anyone that stands in the way as the guards scramble to figure out a way to take them down is just super sweet. And the final confrontation with Makarov is just perfect. Not only is it something straight out of an action movie as Price jumps onto a moving helicopter and brings it down, but that final shot, that final closing shot as Price pulls up a cigar to smoke while watching Makarov's body hanging from the ceiling, is just perfection. What really sets the embassy apart is just how grounded the level feels, representing an actual believable situation, an attack on an American embassy. And even though it's a rather grounded plot, it still manages to feel very tense and impactful, mostly due to the high number of civilian NPCs in the mission, because when you think about it, in most levels, it's just you and the enemy. So the stakes are very high. And the world this level takes place in is very relatable as well. You see kids playing in the streets and people just hanging out in bars. But what I love most about the mission is simply defending the ambassador's house. The moment is just ripped straight out of the Michael Bay movie, 13 Hours. For real, the way they build up the tension slowly is nerve-wracking, and having to use flares to see the enemy only adds to that. Then they get really close to the wall and start to break in, and it only becomes a clusterfuck. And it's awesome.
Fluctuating. About a minute, give or take.
That's 100 times normal spin. Let's get a look at the day side.
$900 in the sun? Shit.
Get us to cover, Salt.
Roger.
With Operation Dark Quarry, we end Infinite Warfare in the list, and we ended with a banger. For this level is a masterpiece, seriously. For those that never played it, you and your team go investigate a quarry set in an asteroid near the sun's orbit because the base went dark. Getting there, you discover that most workers were killed by worker droids that turn hostile, and then you need to evacuate the remaining survivors. And the way the level builds the mystery and suspense as you explore the base further is nerve-wracking. And the mechanic where there is only power in the base when the sunlight hits it because the asteroid is spinning rapidly, and hence the droids only attack when the light shines, creates this unique experience. And the droids really feel like a horde of zombies straight from Left 4 Dead, as they swarm your position left and right, especially at the end when you must hold out against countless lines of them. It's really thrilling. Fun story, the first time I played this level I was scared shitless, cause at the time I must have been what, 10 years old, and I didn't understand jack shit about computers, and neither did I understand basic English. So when the screen suddenly appeared out of nowhere with only a warning sound, I thought I had somehow broken my older brother's PC, and was like, holy fuck, he's gonna kill me. But then of course the level loaded and I was relieved. But anyway, I love this mission, and I know I say that about a lot of levels, but in this one, I mean it. I never get bored or tired of playing it, no matter how many times I do. And every time I witness that establishing shot of the war zone that Washington DC has become, with the dramatic music and radio chatter, I almost drop a tear. Not only is this level visually stunning with astounding overhead shots of the city, but the gameplay is also just so exhilarating. The sense of urgency and desperation given by the Russian invasion as you have to evacuate civilians and fight for control of the capital gives you motives and incentives to want to fight that battle, to want to clear the Department of Commerce, and to want to take down as many enemy vehicles as you can with the Javelin. And then that Black Hawk ride around the Washington Monument and the World War II Memorial is the definition of epic. I'll give it up my feeling complete if looked at in a vacuum, but one shot one kill certainly does not. On the contrary, this level has a clearly defined beginning, middle and end, with each one being cooler than the one before, which is what makes this level so great. Sniping Zakhaev is a classic scene that has appeared already in 3 different games and might appear in 4 if they ever remaster Modern Warfare 3. Running along the streets of Pripyat, sniping down helicopters and carrying Macmillan to the extraction site under a set timer is a really engaging section as well, especially as you explore the rundown buildings of Chernobyl. And finally, holding the evac site with snipers, claymores and even wild dogs is both one of the hardest moments to go through in Veteran and also one of the best moments in the entire series. It's a rush of adrenaline and fun as you pick off each enemy one by one as they begin to swarm your position with ever increasing numbers. And the fact that how well you perform is directly linked to how hard the fight really gets gives you a feeling of satisfaction and accomplishment once you do well. And now, the best Call of Duty level in more than 20 different games and more than 200 different chapters is Loose Ends.
Snipers in position.
Strike team go. Engage Makarov on site.
Roger that. Solid copy.
Let's go. Let's go.
Okay, this is definitely the best of the best. Period. Not only does it have a gorgeous setting, Not only does it have one of the best plot twists and one of the best emotional moments in the entire franchise, and not only does it feature the most recognizable character in the series prominently, it's also just a hell of a lot of fun to play. Fighting inside the smoke without thermal sights is just really a chaotic fun mess, and then clearing out the house through a series of breaches is also very engaging, but where the level truly shines is just holding the house as you transfer files. This is simply the best gameplay section in Call of Duty. I love how they give you not only almost every gun in the game to use, but also a dozen claymores to prepare your defense and a shit ton of grenade launcher ammo. And then holding the house is really thrilling, as the Russians start to come from every direction and you have to keep shifting position constantly to keep up. Originally, I wasn't going to place this one first, but when I recorded the footage, I just had so much fun replaying it that I had to put it at the top. Alright guys, we finally ended the list, and if you've come this far, thank you so much for sticking around. This video definitely took a lot more from me than I expected, but it was still worth it to do. I certainly learned a lot and I hope I can keep making more videos like this in the future. I really just did this as a homage to the series of games that I've been playing for so many years now, and as a way to relive some of the best moments in them. I hope that I've managed to resonate my thinking to you guys for each of the levels. And if you agree or disagree with my ranking, please tell me in the comments, cause I would love to talk more about them. And if you thought my video was great, or if you thought it sucked real bad, please tell me again in the comments. I could really use some feedback. And if I somehow grow a little audience on YouTube, I might just redo this one day once we reach, I don't know, COD 28 or something. And then maybe I'll include all the levels I left out. And if you liked the video, please drop a like and subscribe. And I'll see you next time.